Hi, I'm Wade. This is Montana from SunCoast Converters, and today we're going to be teaching you how to do a full 68 RFE rebuild. All right, guys, this is probably going to be one of the most important videos that we've done here at Thoroughbred Diesel. This is one of the most high failure things that we deal with day in and day out here at Thoroughbred Diesel. Now, you've seen the previous video that we did with Montana, and we talked about 68 RFE diagnosis. So we actually got a chance to have a full failed 68 here in the shop. Owned by our young buddy Eli that runs around the shop up here. This transmission, I'll let Montana talk about some of the failures on it, but long story short, it's needing a rebuild. We thought this was a great opportunity to bring Montana back down, and he's gonna actually be showing you how to do this full rebuild. You're not gonna see a lot of me inside of this video. Sounds like it's what my life coach Adam is telling me. You're gonna see a lot of Montana, and you're gonna see a lot of Eli in it. He'll be running around in the pink shirt. That way you can spot him if you wanna throw something at your TV screen. So we're gonna let Montana kind of jump into this rebuild and let him cut in, talk to you about what he found in this failure, and then we're just gonna get started and put this awesome Suncoast kit in this transmission.
All right, guys, Montana from Suncoast. Got Eli Craig with me here. Eli just turned 18, how long ago?
Last week.
Last week. Sure, all of you guys were 18 at one point, and we've all done things that we probably shouldn't have to our vehicles, and that's why his 68 is sitting here on the bench in front of us. Truck behind me might look familiar from another video on 68s. We actually used this one to go through and check CVIs. And the last time I was here, it was healthy until he got a hold of it. So what we're going to be doing today, step one is to diag. Now, obviously the transmission is in front of us here. It's already been diagnosed, but I do want to take some time to go through, show you guys what diagging looks like and what made us come to the conclusion that we need to go ahead and pull this thing out. Once we go through that, Eli's gonna get his hands dirty, rip this thing apart. Eli has not been hands-on for very long. I'm sure this is his first transmission, as it may be for some of you guys at home. So I think it's imperative that we take our time with this and do a DIY style video with you guys. You know, a lot of people are accustomed to having a shop full equipped with tools. I'm gonna be doing this with as basic of tools as I can find around here. I had Wade go ahead and pull his toolbox out of the tractor shed, and that's what we're going to be working out of today. But with that, let's go ahead and get started. Once it is tore down, we will be walking you through. I brought a category 3 kit to put in this transmission. This is a kit that was straight off the shelf. There's no special setup with it. There's no special parts that I included for him. This is off the shelf as you guys would get it at home. So stick around and stay tuned. All right, step one. You're having transmission issues. What's the first thing you do? Go down and get a code scan if there's a check engine light on. If there's not, a great way is to check CVIs. Now with this one, check engine light is on. We're gonna go ahead and scan it for codes and see what it turns up. With the transmission being out of the truck, we are going to have some secondary codes, but we'll be able to go and eliminate the ones that don't pertain to the failure. Now what we have here, first one on the list is a gear ratio error in third. Third gear in this truck is primarily using the 4C clutch and the underdrive clutch. Now, if we scroll down, we have a solenoid circuit code, but that's expected whenever the main harness is disconnected. It looks like we're pretty centric on only having a third gear ratio code. We can confirm that there's an issue with 4C or underdrive if we go into our data. And we're going to pull CVIs. And we're really just confirming what we already know here, but at home, this is what I would recommend. Come down here and start finding our 4C. So we have a clutch fill of 41. Now there's going to be an alternate too that we can look at here. It's going to be down a little bit more. Alternate of 68. Now let's keep rolling and see what we find for our underdrive clutch. See if there's an issue with the underdrive circuit. Normally on these trucks, everybody knows 4th, 5th, 6th gear ratio codes. That is typically, you know, an overdrive clutch failure, right? Let's see. It's not common to just have a 3rd gear ratio code. Eli, have you ever cleared the codes out of this, or was this the first time?
I believe we cleared the codes before.
Eli says they have cleared the codes before, so that kind of checks out. There may have been something else residual. Overdrive clutch feel 67. That's a little bit on the loose side, but what we're really looking for is underdrive here. Adam will do some magic editing and take away all the scrolling.
Probably not.
All right, underdrive clutch, 50. That one's not so bad. 50 is definitely on the higher side. And you'll see that whenever we rebuild this. We'll go through and check CVIs as a last step here, but 50's not bad on underdrive. So it looks like we have high CVIs on overdrive as well as a higher CVI on 4C clutch. So what that tells me, at some point this truck probably did have a 5th gear ratio code. It's been cleared out probably to get it out of limp mode just so they could drive it home, which a lot of you guys probably will have to do at home at some point as well. So we're going to roll through my preliminary diagnosis of this. We're definitely going to see somewhere in overdrive, and we'll definitely see somewhere on our 4C clutch. Stay tuned and we'll confirm that. As you guys saw, with the diagnostic work on here, we have a 3rd gear ratio code, and we checked our CVIs. Overdrive is a little bit worn, and 4C was also a little high on CVI. So we're going to go ahead and rip into it. Eli, go ahead and start by removing our tail housing here. Get all the ones you can with the socket first, and then we'll go and bust out the ratchet. Those ones back here we should be able to hit with a socket. I gave him a short ratchet on purpose. While you're busting them loose, I'm going to go ahead and just pop them off. And then your entire bottom row down here, I think I can get the ratchet on. We'll see here in a second though. And yes, like I said, these are not exactly the tools that I would like, but these are tools that Wade has in his tractor box and what you guys probably have at home, so we're gonna use them. This one here, you're going to go and basically take out all the way with the ratchet, or with the wrench.
Oh, I just tighten out all the way back up.
I'm going to run and find a dead blow hammer real quick. There are, Adam, come in some. There are 2 places where you can actually fit a screwdriver to help pry. One location is here, and the other location is identical opposite side here. It's kind of jammed up with RTV, you can't really see it. But I'll go and take a dead blow, knock it off a little bit. If it doesn't want to come off, then we'll go and use a combination of a dead blow and pry. Dead blow located. All right, Eli, I'm going to jam a screwdriver in here. You go ahead and whack it. Work some on the other side too. Okay. Tail housing off, out of the way. First actual internal removal part that we come to is our parking gear. Now this doubles as a parking gear and a tone ring, if you will, for speed sensor. Go ahead and take it out of park and rotate it up. And what we're looking for here, see that snap ring right there? Your pliers, reverse them around. I'll spread that off and pull it back. And when you get to a point like that, you got a little pick handy. We can come in here and kind of get behind it. Pull it out of the groove, just work it around. All right, parking gear, same deal. If you take a little pick, you kind of get behind here, hook a tooth with it, and walk it out. This was magnet works great. We can also come back to that. It's kind of irrelevant right now. We don't need to worry about moving it. Eli, go ahead and get an 8mm on a ratchet. Over here on this side, we're going to go ahead and take off our two speed sensors. So this one and this one up here. For what it's worth, the fluid on this unit really does look good. I understand there was some material that they found on the magnet while they were draining it, but the truck only has 30,000 miles. It was definitely better than I expected it to be. All right, one more sensor on this side. This back here is our line pressure sensor. All right, moving to the front of the transmission inside of our bell housing over here. There's one large snap ring that holds in what we call the pie pan. I'll go ahead and get that snap ring out. You're going to take your pick. Our opening is up at the top, about 1230 location. 1230 location right there. Hook it, and then pull it out of your way. There you go, just toss that off to the side. All right, transmission's rolled over. Eli, go ahead and pop the pan off of it. Let's see what we have settled in the bottom of it. All right, we've rotated the transmission around. Eli is taking off all of our pan bolts here. This one with the RevMax is a 5mm hex socket. We're gonna go ahead and take the pan off. Eli, you can go ahead and start back on that. We're gonna go ahead and take the pan off though, see what surprises may lay in the pan for us, and we'll get right back. All right, Eli, all the bolts are out of here. Go ahead and take the dead blow. Whack her over here, I'll catch it so it doesn't fall off. There we go, that's the sound we're looking for. Eli, go ahead and set that down. What do we have for a surprise though? Hold on, let's see. Really nothing crazy to speak of there. Filter was doing its work. Looks like they cleaned off the drain plug that may have had some stuff on it, but all in all, you know, try harder next time when you're trying to kill the transmission, because you didn't do that great of a job this time.
Okay.
All right, Eli, go ahead and take that T25 and put it on our ratchet. Let's go ahead and pull out our filter bolt here. While you're doing that, I'm going to grab us a garbage can. All right, filter off. We're not going to throw this in the garbage. We're going to go ahead and drain it out, and I'll let y'all dispose of that with the rest of your oil stuff. Just set that back there on the pig mat for me. All right, we were looking for a set of good filter wrenches, and while they were looking, I went ahead and just manhandled it and got it broke loose. So Eli, let's go ahead and unscrew our spin-on filter here. I'll address this on reassembly, but that spin-on filter, I really recommend going with an OEM. I'll get into that a little bit later. And this one,
Surprise.
Thank you, buddy. This one, somebody's already upgraded the factory plastic with the metal adapter. That's a great thing. We're going to go ahead and leave that in place. Eli, looking for an 8mm. We're going to go ahead and take off our valve body to case bolts.
What are we taking off here?
Our 8mm valve body to case bolt.
It's not 8mm.
That was a 10.
It's the one with an 8 on it.
Eli, go ahead and take out all of our 8mm here. All right, now we're going to go ahead and lift the valve body up. Easiest way is one hand on the solenoid pack right here, kind of pushing up, and then one back here just kind of supporting. Feel it walking up a little bit. Get a hand back here, pop. Eli, you can go ahead and set this in the pan. Now, there's nothing wrong with this valve body. We are just doing away with the high pressure style. I'll address that in our build section of this. We're going to go ahead and go back with one of our SunCoast Zero Tune valve bodies. That was a high pressure valve body, very common for guys who are looking for a quick upgrade where they don't have to remove the transmission. Now we get to the fun part. Eli, we're going to go ahead and knock out what we call a pie cover up here at the front of the transmission. So keep your dead blow out. I'm going to walk around and grab us a screwdriver. You can come back on this side with me, buddy. And what we're looking for, hear that? That's the noise that we're looking for. Whenever Eli taps this with a dead blow, it's going to knock out the front pie cover here. Eli, go ahead and just don't hit my hand, please. Okay. Go ahead and set this off to the side as well. Now we're getting into the juicy. All right, first thing that we see in the front of the transmission here, input shaft, stator support, and our actual pump, okay? Eli, I need a 10 millimeter, and we are gonna go ahead and take all of our pump bolts out. Pump to case bolts, 10 millimeter, go ahead and pop all those off. Think we might need a longer extension, you got it. Need a longer extension, that way we can get it past the bell housing. You can actually do it by hand. Put that on there along with that other one. All right, it should have all the room now. No, like you had it. Yep. All right, get all of our bolts there. I'll take these away. Go ahead and trade me, give me the ratchet, and you are going to grab a hold of our stator support, so not the input shaft. We're gonna grab back here of the stator support and just pull straight out. That's gonna bring the pump out with it, okay? All right, beautiful. Just set that off to the side. And what we're looking at here now, we can actually see the first part we come to. This is what everybody knows as the overdrive drum assembly. Some people call it the rotating module, but this is where your underdrive clutches and your overdrive clutches reside. Eli, come in here and go ahead and grab our input shaft, and we're gonna pull that entire drum assembly out in one shot.
Almost stuck.
If it does that, you can go back in a little bit and just kind of pop it out. No, you're good. Don't be easy with it now. Don't be gentle. Beautiful. Okay. For the time being, we're going to set that off to the side. We'll get around to inspecting that. Center support. Center support is just as it says, dead center of the transmission, and it basically separates our upper half from our lower planetary set. The center support also houses our 4C clutch. If you guys remember from the diag portion of this video, we suspect there's an issue with 4C. All right, now the center support is held in with one beveled snap ring. Easiest way to pop this one out, get a good long flat blade, get behind it, kind of twist. Eli, if you don't mind, for ease of this, I'm going to go ahead and pop this one out of the way. Screwdriver's just a tad too big. The snap ring only goes back in one way. And I'll show us up close on the camera as it comes apart. Notice I said it was beveled or tapered.
Trying to get it. I think I got it.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is our rounded side. If we flip this over, there's paint on this side. This is the flat side. The flat side should always go down towards our center support. All right, next we're gonna go ahead and remove our center support. Eli, I'll let you try this one. Grab it like a bowling ball. When I say that, if your hands are any clearer than mine, try to keep everything clean. But 2 fingers inside the center here, and we're gonna kind of pull and whittle at the same time. I'm gonna work up top with you and try to help work this out using a screwdriver. So inside the center support, kind of grab it like a bowling ball. Oh yeah, she's moving.
Something about more grabbing it like a woman.
It's his video moment.
It's, yep.
His mother's gonna watch this at some
Yeah.
point. That's on him.
I can tell you what, right now that woman's not very impressed. Beautiful. All right, now, Eli, bring that back over here for a second. See, Eli is actually still in school. I want him to be a part of this teardown as much as possible, but he's about to have to break away from us. So let's just take a peek and see. Okay, this clutch right here that we're looking at, that is your 4C. Now I'm looking at our clearance, our physical clutch clearance here. 4C actually looks okay. But let's go ahead and pull the clutches out and get a better indicator. We're going to flip this over. So what we're seeing here, now these are actually supposed to be a black/gray color. Looks like we might have a little bit of glazing. I can see a little bit of heat on our steel. Nothing terrible though. You guys at home can probably see this little ring here. So that's a little indicator of heat, but nothing crazy. I don't think it's going to show up on camera. I'll try to hold it correctly. But if we look at the clutch itself, we can see there's a color difference between our outer... Nope.
Hang on. Let me keep fighting.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I can see by eye there's a difference in the color on our outermost radius versus our innermost radius. And that's indicative. At some point it did slip.
Let me see just a little bit.
Yeah, probably glazed the clutch over a little bit. Glazing happens, that's the term that I use whenever a friction starts to lose coefficient because of slippage, heat. You know, we're not flaking off clutch material. The clutch has just glazed over. It's lost its ability to physically hold any sort of power input. Let's stop here. Let's go, and I'll break my order of operations for you, Eli. Bring me that overdrive drum back over here, and let's take a look at that and see what our overdrives look like. Yes. Just stand it on its end, kind of like this. Eli, if you would, hold this, support it top and bottom. And grab our screwdriver over here and start busting this off. Okay, this snap ring that we're getting into right here, this one is what holds our reverse pressure plate in place. This next piece that I'm going to remove is our reverse pressure plate itself. Eli, let me spin her. Okay. First set of clutches that we come to right here are the reverse clutches themselves. They are a brown tannish color from factory. Let's take a look at these. All in all, pretty well. Adam, I don't know if we can actually see this on video, but we do have some ink markings here. You can actually still read the ink and the part number.
I can't get that.
She won't focus. It's really hard to tell with the lighting, yeah. But visually, those are great. Moving on, we have our reverse / overdrive pressure plate. We're going to go ahead and remove that. It is held in place by a snap ring on the outer radius around here. I'm going to rotate this and find a good opening to start with. And it looks like I'm going to go with this one here. Just get under that, pop it up. Now, I don't know if you caught that on video. I could see it by my eye, but when I removed that snap ring, we had a little spring action that happened there. A lot of times you'll get a spring up if we have damaged overdrive clutches. The reason for that, when these things get overheated, they tend to deform. I'm expecting us to see that. They'll deform. Instead of being a flat clutch plate, it'll turn basically into a spring. Oh yeah, come on now. It's just fighting me a little bit here, guys. I apologize. There we go. Interesting. So our first clutch that we come up to is a very nice bright orange color. Let's see what happens. Let's go ahead and remove our first shaft. Now this is our, what I'm going to call our overdrive hub, overdrive shaft as it's called sometimes on the forums. That in and of itself is one of the infamous weak links in a 68 RFE. We'll spend a minute looking at this. So it is completely hollow. And it is a friction weld design that mates the shaft to the hub itself. Now, oddly enough, the friction weld is not the part that actually gets damaged. Eli, hold that up for us. Move, you put your finger in the worst spot. There, right there, you got it. Where these actually have their issues with these oiling holes right here, sometimes you'll start to see a little fracture, a crack. And it runs down, typically connecting both of these oiling holes, and the shaft will end up splintering and breaking off. And when that happens, you have first gear, second gear, third gear, no fourth, fifth, or sixth. This happens a lot. And you know, a lot of the times it's a truck like this one. This truck is basically stock, not a ton of power on it. And a lot of people ask, well, why does it happen? Flat out, what I've came across is some of these guys that are tuning, there's an issue. And the only thing that I can come up with is like the operating system itself, where we're using the incorrect operating system, and that is basically causing a tie-up. Now, I can't go and confirm that. I've been inside of a truck that it happened on. This thing, when it lets go, it sounds like a shotgun blast going off. But the only thing that physically makes this break is a tie-up. The cause of the tie-up can be a lot of different stuff. And tie-up is a term where we have a clutch pack on that should not be on. You know, you would basically have two clutch packs fighting themselves, and that would be a tie-up. You're good. Next shaft that we're going to pull out, our overdrive clutches should pull out with this one as well, but this is our underdrive shaft. Similar design. Eli, go ahead and thank you. Similar design. We have a shaft and a hub combination. Set that off to the side. And what we really wanted to look at here, okay, that first clutch looked really nice and vibrant and orange. As we go down in the stack, we start to see some discoloration, some burning, it looks like some delaminating. Delaminating is where the clutch is starting to become unbonded from its backing, from the steel backing. You can see a little bit of what I would call a fisheye right here. That's an indication of heat. But over and above all, yeah, this one was definitely hurt. It was not smoked. Looks like you at least noticed there was an issue and quit driving it, or at least quit beating on it, we'll say. I won't give you all the credit. Just give you some of the credit. All right, next thing that we're going to do, this little bearing just kind of sits in place. We'll pop that out of the way. To make things easier for us in the next steps, I'm going to go ahead and remove the input shaft itself. The input is held in with a little wire retainer ring. I don't know if this pick will work for us, but we're going to give it a good shot. Eli, let me see. There was an orange pick on this table. We had it out earlier. Would you see if you can locate that for me? For the time being, I got the drum. This is one of those things, there's no real trick to this other than getting under it, And if you do have a person helping you like I do, sometimes 2 hands is better than 1. If we can get our pick behind here and pull it out. And get our other pick under it and just pop it up. Okay, and there we have it. That's the only thing that retains your input shaft. Eli, hold the input shaft. I'm going to lift up on the drum and it should slide right out. Perfect. Just go ahead and throw that off to the side. Now what I'm going to do, I have one overdrive clutch that's left here at the bottom. I'm just going to pop this thing up. Once again, pick is your best friend with the 68 RFE. And just lift that up and out of the way. All right, easiest way that I found to get these out, and I've made some tools back at the shop, but what we're looking at here, what we're going to remove next, is another beveled snap ring. Now, it is located on the outermost portion of this overdrive, underdrive pressure plate, and it keeps that from moving. Let's find the opening. And in the spirit of DIY, let me see that dead blow again. If I can get this here, what we're basically doing, hand me the biggers. What I'm basically going to do here is just make sure that this snap ring kind of moves to a location I want it to. Do me a favor, Eli, hold that drum so it doesn't spin. Okay. You guys see that? I rotate it so the opening was in a location here. Now, once again, double handing it here. If I can catch one back here, one screwdriver on the back side, one screwdriver on the front side, we should be able to essentially rotate this and it come out. All right, Eli, do me a favor. Grab a pick, one of these I was just using. Now, when I go and pry this snap ring right here, when I go to pry it out of the way, go ahead and shove a pick behind it just as a placeholder so we don't lose our progress. All right, buddy? All right, Eli's got the pick in the way. Hold it right there. And we didn't quite get enough of a bite on it. Okay. And we just lost it rotated. Oh, what you got there, buddy? Yeah, look at that. I can't really see from this angle. That does help a lot, Adam. Thank you. All right, so we did make progress. I'm gonna go and squeeze in here and kind of see if I can't tap this right behind it. Okay. All right, Eli, you should be able to remove that. We should be good to go. And yep, just as Eli did, we're gonna go ahead and pry out and up. Hold what you got right there, and we're gonna spin the drum around with us, okay? This one, when I pull it out of here, you'll see why we fight it so much. It's under a lot of tension. Okay. So as you can see, that's why we're under so much tension. It is a very much oversized snap ring by design. We're actually going to go ahead and get rid of this. I'll go over that in the future, but what you'll see, I would not be surprised if some of you guys at home, you're going to do your rebuild, you tear it down only to find that this snap ring is broken in 3, 4, 5 pieces. Obviously, anytime we have a broken snap ring, it's not doing its job. It's not retaining the plate that it's supposed to be retaining. So this one, straight to the garbage. All right, we can go ahead and lift out our overdrive, underdrive pressure plate. This will actually get scrapped. Reason for that, my kit comes with a modified version. All right, Eli, I got one more thing for you to do before you leave. I'll give you the easy one. There's a snap ring down in here. Now that snap ring is what that plate that I just removed, that's what that plate sits on. That's a place keeper basically. So go ahead and work on getting that snap ring out of there. And this one, since you already got the opening in the right spot, you can probably just get behind it with a snap or a screwdriver. See, the problem is Eli's not holding his tongue right. I'm looking at him. He's got to close. There we go. Tongue's out. Now we're doing something. Okay. Now this one's not under near the pressure. If you let go of it, it'll pretty much sit in its spot there. There you go, she's out. Underdrives, I wouldn't expect there to be an issue, but we're gonna go ahead and pull these out also just to inspect here on camera before Eli leaves. One pick underneath, one pick 180 out underneath. Easiest way to just lift these out of place. Set them over there, let's take a gander. And these all look pretty good. We have a little heat ring, and once again, I don't know if it'll show up on video. It is showing, okay. So we have a little heat ring, but nothing to be concerned about, honestly. This is pretty common this happens. Now, if you notice, these are both overdrive and underdrive, or what we call single-sided clutches, meaning that clutch material is only on one side. The opposite side of that is the steel. So these stack together. You know, a transmission, when you're rebuilding, normally you have a steel, double-sided clutch, steel, double-sided clutch. Well, with the 68, it is a fairly compact design. They integrated the steel and the clutch itself. So the next clutch up in the stack is the steel for the lower clutch itself. All right, we're back. Eli has exited the building. You're stuck with me now. Back to what we were doing, which is disassembling our overdrive, underdrive drum itself. We have all the clutches removed, all of our snap rings that retain the pressure plates are removed. And what we're going to move on to now is actually taking out what is known as the balance piston. And that is held in place by this one snap ring right here up top. Now on a handful of these over the years, I've seen this blow out. We actually have a retainer that we built to prevent that from happening. And we'll show you that on reinstallation. So biggest piece of information on this, you guys don't want to spread it too far. Like if you saw this, these pliers that I have really won't spread it too far. Some other ones that I've seen, it'll open them up and it'll actually deform the snap ring. We don't want to do that. So just get it enough where we can get one lip up and walk around, kind of peel it off. And it's not really under any sort of major pressure, nothing like that. Now this is pretty common to see. They do sell replacement OEM springs like this. For whatever reason, on 2018 and newer trucks, I found this to be really common. But that is your balance return spring. And as y'all can see, we have busted this keeper completely off. It's not something we did, it just happened in the truck. So we're gonna go ahead and replace that while we're in here. Moving on down here, oh look, there's a piece of that clip that I was talking about. Moving on down here, this piston that we're pulling out now is actually your underdrive piston. The way that this system works, this piston gets oil behind it and moves up and applies your underdrive. The parts that we just pulled out, this is responsible for returning that piston whenever that clutch pack is not in use. We don't want that to drag, so that's what this does. It forces that piston back down into place. Easiest way to get this out, one screwdriver, come in on the side and just use it kind of prying up. And she's out. One more snap ring. This is all the way at the bottom. This is another tapered snap ring. This particular snap ring holds all three pieces, your outer drum, your inner drum, as well as your input clutch hub. It holds all three of these together. And if you want to back the camera up, I may lose this and it may splash a little bit of fluid. Like that. Wade, do we have any larger snap ring pliers? All right, let me go find those. I'll be right back. All right, Wade still isn't back with another pair, but I went ahead and found some, so we're good. In good shape now. He probably got lost. All right, they're still not quite the right size, but if y'all can see right down on this side, we got it pulled out far enough. I'm gonna go ahead and roll it up. Get it up over our lip. Now this is really not the way that I like to do this at all. This can damage that snap ring groove. I have a replacement with me. That's why I'm doing it this way, but you guys should at home get the concept of it. This is the incorrect way. The reason I say this is incorrect, like I said, it can damage that snap ring groove that this goes in. This already has an issue. A lot of times we get cores in where that snap ring is blown out. It's actually came out of that groove. And when that happens, it really causes a lot of issues. Your inner drum here can actually over travel. And if you guys remember how this is set up inside the transmission, this drum is very, very close to our center support. It's really, really close. So if this inner drum is allowed to over travel, it'll actually make contact with your center support and start chewing it up all the way around. So we don't want that to happen. This is the incorrect way of doing it. I have the spare with me. I need to get it out of here so we can move forward. So that's what we're going to do. Wade's coming back now, finally. We thought you got lost. This is the absolute, well, you know what? We can probably use these other ones now. This is the absolute wrong way to do it. And I was making sure to highlight that so nobody at home did it this way and chewed everything up. But we just got to, at this point, get it out so we can move on. Yeah. Back to what was working. Adam's just making me look bad on camera. He sabotaged us.
I'm good at this.
There we go. Get her whooped.
Don't push down.
Don't push down. Yeah, you ain't kidding. All right. Still surprisingly came out without being too stretched. When I talk about these being stretched, I'm talking about the opening here. I get these, you know, in on cores where this opening is, you know, at a resting position like that. And that's just not right. That's going to make this easier to pop out of that snap ring location, like I was talking about, and just leads to further issues down the road. But for you guys at home, now we can get in here and actually disassemble the rest of our drum. Let me grab my dead blow. And I did lie, there is one more snap ring I forgot to take out, and that is going to be right at our edge over here. This snap ring is a wavy snap ring that is used to cushion our reverse apply. I don't know if we can see that on video, but it is a wave.
Is there orientation? Beveled on one edge?
No, it's just a regular wave. Pretty crazy that little wave cushions reverse apply enough to where you don't really feel it in the truck. Otherwise, you know how 48s, they'll slam into gear, reverse or drive. Well, in the 68, you know, being more refined.
More refined. Yeah, that's exactly a technical marvel, if you will.
All right, so what we want to do, we don't want to hit the aluminum, and you don't want to do this with a metal hammer. If you do that, if you recall from a couple of steps ago, there's another snap ring groove right here. We don't want to go and hit that down, beat it down, so dead blow is the best way. Flip it up on the side. I've done that 3 times now. Flip it up on the side, give it a good whack. away she goes. This will be reused. We have sealing rings. Sorry, not sealing rings. We have O-rings. One right here. One right here. Now there is a hidden one for reverse, and that is all the way on the outside. I'm going to peel it down, Adam, so you can kind of catch that on video. But that is all the way on the outside of the drum right here. And luckily, these are color-coded for the people at home. You have a red one. It's a little bit smaller, and that's actually our top one here. And then you got a green that is below that. And these are responsible for feeding our overdrive, underdrive drum.
That was the red one that was on the top there.
Red is on the top, green's a little bit larger, it's on the bottom. We can set that off to the side now. Moving back over to our aluminum pieces here, your inner and outer drum assembly. Now, this should be pretty easy to go and take apart by hand. Easiest way, thumb on the inside, and with your other fingers, you want to lift on the outside.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to rotate back down and just pull up on it. And that separates your inner drum from your outer drum. Now on this Category 3 kit, we are not going to be reusing this factory style drum. At Suncoast, we have our own drum. It is called the Mega V2 drum. Wade, you can go and make a trophy out of this or something. I'll give that to you.
Absolutely. I'll give you that.
Thank you. All right, now that our input clutch is completely disassembled, we're going to move along to our center support. Now, while Levi was here, if you recall, we did pull the 4C clutches out of our basket here. And the reason for that, before he left, I wanted him to see what he did or didn't do to this unit. But with the 4C clutches out of the way, that moves us along to removing the 4C return spring and then our 4C piston here. 4C return spring is held in place by the snap ring that's on the innermost radius. And there's going to be an opening. No, I'm looking for, you're good, Wade. There's a little flathead screwdriver that I had over here, and I appear to have lost it. No, that's good. So easiest way to do this, you can take your time, sit there and gingerly pry it out. But easiest way that I've found is get right here. You don't want to go and mar the aluminum. We don't want to hit inwards like that. What we're going to try to do is hit outwards, and what that's going to do is force our snap ring out of the groove and up and over. Now this one does have a little bit of spring tension. Wade, you may want to go and put your hand kind of, yeah, just so we don't.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Is there an orientation to that?
There is no orientation on that. That snap ring is another snap ring that we've seen blow out quite a bit in the past. We do have a fix for that. That'll be on the assembly side of this video, but that does involve taking this apart. So I'm going to preliminarily show how we do that. I like using a snap ring plier set for that and walk around. And we're just going to spread those apart. I think I made a new word up, preliminarily. I don't think that's a real word. Yeah.
Daggone, Grandpa, did you leave your ringer on?
All right. I sure did. I ruined that whole thing, didn't I?
No, you're fine. But that is a really loud ringtone for someone in their 30s.
You probably want to silence that. That's who? Yeah, you probably want to silence that. Are you still rolling?
Yes.
I apologize for that. All right, 4C return spring is separated. That'll come in handy later on. Same way that we pulled out our underdrive piston, we're going to do that on this. One screwdriver, kind of up on the side. Pop it up. Visual inspection. Clutch was in good shape. I don't expect us to see any sort of tearing, and we don't. The kit will come with new pistons. We can set that off to the side. One other piece that's in here is, y'all can see this outer ring here. That is actually a piston. That is a piston for the 2C clutch. 2C clutch is used for second gear and sixth gear. That's the planetary holding clutch. We need to go ahead and take off this little stamped steel piston. It has a very, very narrow apply area. We're going to correct that with a billet piston that has a wide load apply on there, as well as extra clearance for more clutches. So let's go ahead and separate this. Adam, I think I have the opening rotated towards you here, but what we're looking for is this area right here. If you guys can see that snap ring, it actually holds a bevel return spring in place, which is seen right here below the snap ring. Snap ring's here. That's our beveled return spring. So this is also under a little bit of pressure. It's not going to pop up and out of the way. But what we don't want to do is come in here, jamming a screwdriver in here, trying to pry that out. That's a really easy way to go and open up that snap ring groove, which is then going to make this easier to blow out. So we don't want to do that. We want to go and take our same approach as before, come in at an angle, kind of parallel to our aluminum, come in at an angle, and knock that out of place. So I'm going to rotate this around, make it easier for me to work the hammer, and get that done. All right, now that one's a little bit easier. All that we're looking to do, it probably doesn't look like much has happened at all, but what we're actually able to do is pull this just above that snap ring groove. And now we can take our time, walk around, and not damage anything with this. Just walk around like that. Stay in parallel to the opening. We don't want to go and have any aluminum slivers coming off of this. Take your time, walk it around.
What's the orientation of that bevel?
Well, the snap ring itself, there is no bevel on. Now the bevel spring, kind of like a 48 forward bevel spring, that's what's underneath here. And that acts as the return for the piston. We don't want to have any sort of clutch drag or anything like that going on. So that is really the sole purpose of that bevel spring serves.
So I guess that's one nice
snap ring out of the way.
Nice thing about the 68s is you don't have a bunch of bevel snap rings.
That's right. Wade was talking about bevel springs and whatnot. There is only a couple that were in here. We've already addressed those in the video. But this little bevel comes out now pretty freely. Honestly, at this point we can flip it over and it should just fall right out. Now the way the bevel is going to face up on reinstallation. Piston removal, you can go and flip it over, kind of hit it on the table, it'll fall out, but it should freely come out just by grabbing the sides and lifting up. And once again, we're going to go ahead and throw that away. We can inspect it. 2C, there was no indications on our scan tool that showed this would be an issue. We haven't actually inspected the 2C clutch yet, but I don't see an issue with this piston. It was probably working just fine. Wade, if you would. Moving along to our gear sets. Starting off, this is the first that we pulled out. This is your 4C ring gear. Really nothing to that except for a bearing and a thrust washer. Now,
the orientation of that bearing is?
Orientation of that bearing is a great question. If we look from the side view, we can see some alignment tabs here. Now, if you went and put this upside down, these alignment tabs would keep this from being flush. So the alignment tabs are going to go up, which makes the rounded side facing up, flat side facing down. Wade, what is this made out of?
It's like plastic.
Looks like plastic, right?
Yeah.
What would happen if we were to... Oh, no.
Right, smooth and
Oh, no. That's what's in your 68. Oh, now that was a little bit of a exaggeration, but there are times we go and tear these apart, and that thrust washer that sits down in here has taken a beating, is in a couple pieces. I've got the solution for it in the rebuild kit. We'll address that. One thing that we haven't really been talking about, and I take it for granted every single day, but you guys at home really need to pay attention. One thing, that's our bushings here, okay? Bushings. Now this truck we're also probably pretty lucky on. Like I said earlier, it's about 30,000 miles on it. All of our bushings so far up until this point have looked amazing. The kit does come with bushings, however, if y'all know anything about bushings, Specific to transmissions, they are what we call a line bore or a center bore. Finish in place. What that means is that the bushing is installed from the factory, and this goes on a machine, and it's finished in place to be 100% round. The issue with replacing these, if you went through here, you could replace every single one with the kit I gave you. You can't finish them in place, which means that going back together, you're going to feel it's going to have a sticky spot. That's not good. You don't want that. You need to spend the time and get these to fit well. Now with us, I have no issues with reusing bushings throughout as long as they're in great shape. These are going to clean up really, really nice. But that is something that I always get asked about is bushing replacements. Should I not? And that's really up to you. If you have one that's damaged, obviously, yes, we have to go and replace it. But you need to know how to finish that in place. Oh, wow.
Why are you digging that?
Wade, you owe me lunch, man. I cut myself.
Why are you digging that out of your finger, Montana? How would a customer finish that in place? How would they be able to do that? Machine shop?
Well, most of us at home are not going to have a machine shop.
Right.
The only way to really finish it in place is like Scotch-Brite. I like using Scotch-Brite if I got to go and do some fine finish work on it. I'll go and figure out which part of the bushing is actually sticking on the shaft, and I'll go and sit there and just polish and go around until everything fits nice. That's really the only way to go and do it. Another thing that we can talk about, most of these bushings in here are a two-piece design, not two-piece, but a Babbitt style, I try to go and send one-piece solid bronze bushings out when I can. They're not always available. So I try to give you guys a premium solution if we've got to go down that road. All right. Moving along down here, our first planetary set that we come to, your 4C. Move this back over here. 4C reindeer fits down in this. If you hold your tongue the right way, your 2C clutch engages on the outside here. 4C clutch engages here. But what we're going to look for, any obvious signs of issues, whether you have chipping on your teeth. Another thing we want to feel is our play in the pinions themselves. Up and down is pretty normal. That's for the most part how they're designed. If you actually see in here on camera, we have some red Teflon coated, almost like a thrust washer, if you will, on that. But the pinion itself should not have any side to side wobble. If we have side to side, that means that our needle bearings inside the pinion itself is bad. This planetary will need to be fixed and or replaced.
Are those thrust replaceable?
I haven't actually found those separately, no. And for us, with the amount that we do, it's easy enough for me to go ahead and scrap this piece and go and grab another one. But I've not, in my years of doing this, I've not actually seen a place that supplies new thrust within this. I haven't even found a place that sources the needle bearings. I'm sure you can go and cross it over, but that's one thing, planned obsolescence, we'll call it, that I find a lot within our industry. And that is just people, making stuff that's basically throwaway.
Yep, that's right, washing machine.
Yep. One thing to note, first time I did one of these, I kind of freaked out about it, but this ring gear right here, it does have a little bit of play. I don't think it's going to show up on camera. It is completely normal, but there is just the slightest amount of play on here. Nothing to be concerned about. Once again, inspect your bushings, make sure that there's no obvious pitting, damages, make sure nothing's spun in there. This one looks great. We'll keep on moving. All right, we can look down in here. We can see we do have a clutch pack that we're coming up on. That clutch pack is your 2C. 2C is in charge of second gear and sixth gear. When 2C engages, it stops that larger planetary that we just saw on video. From the factory, there's only 3 of our 2C clutches. In our kit, we're going to increase that to 4. And honestly, 2C rarely ever has any sort of an issue. However, here's a great example. Hopefully we can see this on camera. Now, I've not dug into this. I haven't done anything with it, but we can actually see some very, very large pitting or delamination in this clutch here. And this is uncommon. 2C really is not that much of an issue point for us. And even on our diagnostic side, we hadn't saw anything that would lead us to believe 2C was having any issues slipping, anything like that. However, we can see on our steel, she definitely has been hot and has gotten warm a time or 10. So all this will go in the trash, and we'll go ahead and replace all that. But it's still flat. There's no sort of distortion. That's probably the worst that I've seen in a long time as far as delamination goes on a unit that, all things considered, looks halfway decent.
Yeah. I think he's having some problems in the low side of the drive, so that would line up, right?
Yeah, it came up with third gear ratio code,
yep.
Which is, typically something with the 4C clutch or something with the underdrive circuit on that. It shouldn't really affect 2C. So that one's a little bit odd, unforeseen, but okay. It's a 68 at this point in time. There's really nothing that I've seen that just makes me shake my head and say, I wonder how that happened. 68s are just an anomaly. They will throw you for a loop a lot. Moving on down, we can take this. Remember our bowling ball comment from earlier. This is very similar to that. If I reach in here, our entire lower planet assembly will come out. Pressure plate for 2C. It is non-directional. Doesn't matter when you're reinstalling it. Once it's clean, which way you go back in. Personal preference. I like going back in with the same side that was already riding against a clutch. Yeah. Set that off to the side here.
So you would mark that with the discoloration for this clutch side?
Yeah, even whenever we go and clean this pressure plate up, we're going to have a witness ring right here. This witness ring is just from it riding in the case. There's no issues with it, but that's a really easy way to indicate which side was facing the case and which side faced a clutch on there.
You don't need to apply that.
And in our output assembly here, the 3 bearings that are back here are different. They're different heights. They are also black in color as opposed to the silver color. Very hard to mix these up. Wade's going to ask orientation. Once again, this one has alignment tabs on it. Flat side will be down against the planetary. Rounded side will be facing up. Disassembly for this output planet assembly. Outer edge here, there's a little thin snap ring running the entire circumference of it. We just got to go and find the opening for it, which is right here. Take your pick. Just get behind it and peel her off. Reaction shell comes off. Additional bearing. Sun gear with another black bearing on it. And our 2 planetary sets. So we're going to spend some time inspecting this. If you guys have a unit that had a ton of metal debris contamination throughout, especially if we have maybe a sprag failure or we clearly have some bushing damage, one of the best things to do while you're sitting there, it takes a lot of time, but you really need to do it, inside of our ring gears right here. While you're cleaning it, you need to sit there with a pick and go through each and every one of these. You'd be so surprised what I see smashed in there against the gears. Little pieces of, our Babbitt bearings, sprag failures. So sit there, take the time, clean that. I can't stress enough how important it is to go and clean this unit properly. But same deal with this. You have the same red looking end caps on there, and we're just checking for side to side load on it. These are really nice and healthy that I've felt so far. Once I get them clean, we'll definitely do another inspection on it. Another thing to look at is all of our splines. Make sure we don't have any chipped splines. Anything out of the obvious that would cause a problem down the road. And for those that always ask, hey, do y'all have a billet output shaft for a 68? The answer is no. this output / planetary assembly is together. You guys at home that are doing this, one thing that'll stand out, probably not going to show up on camera, that's fine. We can see a wear pattern right here that stops. Now that is your transfer case engagement. That's how far a transfer case has engaged. Some of the higher horse and higher mileage trucks, we can actually see a twist in the splines right here. If there's a twist, throw it away. Yep. Go ahead and source another one. These run anywhere from $800 to $1,000 depending on where you can find them, but it is not worth putting back in a already twisted shaft. You're asking for a fatigue failure down the road by doing so. And one last piece.
The input of the transfer case has to be addressed as well.
The input of the transfer case, typically you need to inspect the teeth on that as well, make sure that we don't have any sort of marks. But we do have a bearing down here that is non-serviceable. Higher horse stuff you guys will go and see. There's some other companies out there that are doing, you know, competition builds basically. And they talked about these pinions on this output carrier moving, and it does happen. We get cores in, typically don't see it in cores. We see it from high load situations, trucks that are making a lot of power, where those pinions actually start to walk. So solution to that, there's a lot of guys that are out there welding these in place, and that's fine. There's really no issue as long as your heat control is good. You don't really damage anything by doing that, and that's the only surefire way to make sure that our pinions don't come up and ruin the whole entire unit. Had that happen, one of our really old units, man. This was probably a unit that we built 8 years ago. Guy beat the crap out of it and finally gave up one day. It wasn't clutch issues, as before we really knew that was a problem, and it did walk up, and when that walks up, it does send metal through the entire unit. So that pretty much wraps up our planetary disassembly here. We're going to spend some time cleaning all this up. Last piece that is in the case is the infamous sprag / low reverse drum. Now I gotta get elbows deep in here. There's a snap ring that's kind of a pain in the butt. I hate showing my back to the camera, but I'm gonna have to get in there and really get on it, okay? All right. Now what I'm going to do, I pulled the snap ring out so we can kind of zoom in on the camera and show you guys what I'm talking about here, okay? Snap ring. Oh. Whoa!
Oh, hey,
whoa.
Hey. So you got a few beers in you at home. Action
right.
shot. Move that light. There you go. Now do it.
All right. I pulled the snap ring out of its groove. That's where you're going to find it. You're going to see the little notches on the case, and it rests just below those notches. That snap ring is a tapered snap ring as well. So when we're going back assembling, we have to pay attention which is the flat side, which is the rounded side. But I'm going to spend some time and walk around and pop the rest of the snap ring out. Now, Wade's used to working with cows. Wade, I want you to go ahead and reach in there and rip out that low reverse drum like you're going to rip out a calf. Oh yeah, use your whole arm. There you go. There you go.
Check presentation here, make sure she's coming the right way.
All right, there we go. Go ahead and stand that case up on the bell housing.
On the bell housing?
Yeah. That way, if there's anything left in it, she'll hit the pig mat.
Mm-hmm. There's a little washer fell out there, mister.
Oh, that goes with the pan. Yeah. Okay. I blame our boy Eli for that one. He got a little Western taking the pan off there. All right, we can really just move the case out of the way. We'll spend some time talking about our low reverse drum here, and we'll send that home with somebody to be cleaned up. And the last piece to our disassembly is our low reverse drum and sprag assembly together. And this assembly is held together like everything else in the 68. We have a snap ring on the outermost radius right here. And we're just going to go ahead and pop it out of the way. I hate that pig. Go ahead and pop that thing out of the way. Pull up on it. Now this drum is unique. 68 in and of itself is unique. most of our clutch tolerances, especially like our low reverse drum and our reverse, that's at the front of the underdrive, overdrive drum itself. Those snap rings are what changes our clearance on that. Now you can go and get different size clutches, but they're not standard. You know, if we're talking about you go down and order OEM replacement clutches on, they come in one size. Your varying factor is your snap ring itself, and there's a handful of different sizes on that. So that's why whenever we do a build at Suncoast, I try to keep all the transmission pieces together. It just works out better that way. If not, you're running around searching for a snap ring that might be 10 thousandths thinner or thicker. Once our snap ring's out of the way, we can go ahead and just flip it over, and the sprag and clutches should fall out together, which leave us with the drum itself. Now, I'd say a good 80% of the time, whenever you tear down a 68, there's no issue found back here in the low reverse drum. There's a lot of clutch material here. The apply area is a huge apply area. This drum flat out typically does not have an issue. This, on the other hand, sprag, everybody who, if you don't even own a 68 truck, you know about the sprag, you know how infamous they are for failing when they say flipping, you know. We're gonna pop this apart and show you what the people are talking about when they say my sprag flipped or my sprag broke, okay? This one is working properly though. We know that, we put it in our hand. We can spin it clockwise, but it's locked in counterclockwise.
When it flips, it don't lock the other direction.
When it flips, it typically locks in both directions. Take this apart. This is known as a dog bone setup or a wishbone setup. So we're looking here, these are not rollers. Okay, they're one piece. They kind of look like a T-bar in a way. I'm doing a bad job of explaining the shape of them, but
It's supposed to go say, it look like a roller to me.
it's not a roller. Not a roller, Wade, but plastic cage, roller. Whenever they talk about it flipping, whenever these are in place, this is going to be really hard to see on camera, I'll do my best, but when they're in place, they're riding on the inner race here and the outer race, which is our main case here, okay? It's designed to only go one way. That way was clockwise. When it goes the other way, these wishbones flick back and mechanically wedge themselves to stop the sprag from rotating. Well, when it explodes, when these roll over and flip, they basically stand straight up and it locks that sprag in one location. Now, the benefits of having a stock style sprag, if it does flip, it typically doesn't send a bunch of material through your unit. If you go and do an upgraded style sprag, which we go and swap these over to a spring and roller setup, if one of those come apart, you're making 1,000 horsepower, you're doing burnouts, you're doing all the stupid stuff that lead up to a sprag failure, and it does let go, that upgraded unit makes a heck of a mess throughout. And there's really nothing on the market right now that we can go that's better than the roller style sprag. I thought that was important for people to see how the sprag works, what it actually looks like inside, and also we need to open it up and clean everything out just to be safe. Wade, if you do the honors. All right. We've got to go and make something at the press. And the reason we got to make our tool here, our low reverse drum needs to come apart. The fluid behind the piston, number one, it's old, it's dirty. Number two, we really need to inspect that piston, make sure, hey, look, there's no trash, there's no debris, there's no issue with putting this thing back together. The last thing you want is to get everything done, go to air check at the very end of the day, and all of a sudden you're tearing it all the way back apart because you didn't go and replace a piston. We're here. Adam, if you want to bring the camera down on here, I'll try to show us. They're held in place, the piston itself is held in place by two keepers. Notice that there's no actual, springs like we've seen throughout the 68. That is because it uses a beveled spring to return itself in the bore. That beveled spring has fingers that extend to these keepers and keeps constant tension on it to try to keep it down. We have got to go and find a bearing or find something that will go kind of on the outer edge over here, all the way around, where we can go and push down and release these two keepers. Very much like a valve spring keeper, right? Very, very similar concept. In fact, it's the identical concept of it. So once we can go and figure out our tool arrangement, make our own stuff, we'll be back. I'll show you guys over at the press how to take this apart, how to check it, and ultimately how to reassemble it without going and breaking the keepers. That's one big thing. Take your time on this. If you go and bend these keepers, they're very flimsy as it is. You're going to have a heck of a time putting it back together with keepers that are all cattywampus. So we'll be right back. All right, we went ahead and made our little tool. Wade, hold that up for us here. Wade has found us some 4-inch tubing somewhere. And what we're looking for is a sight glass. We can actually get our hands up in here and work and remove these keepers. Go ahead and set it down on there.
Did they get a good shot of the keepers, I guess?
Yeah, we did the keepers on the table back there. So let's get this centered where I can get to it. We got these split for the keepers facing me. Yeah, go ahead and chalk up our wood there. Do the honors, buddy, and jack her down. Already tightened it up.
Yeah, but well, didn't have my
I tightened her up.
handy dandy pliers with me there. Should we talk about if you guys are going to run down to your local Harbor Freight and get you a press for the house, make sure you keep all your old brake rotors.
Wade says if you're going down to Harbor Freight and getting a press, use save your old brake rotors. They make fantastic tools. And I agree. I agree.
Good fixture, good fixture.
This doesn't have a lot of pressure on it, so as soon as we make contact, you should see that bevel spring start to go into press.
Here we go, boys, contact.
All right.
I saw a little relief there, Monty.
Yeah, keep rolling. Keep rolling. Yep, keep going. Keep going. I'm going to flatten her out near about. Hair more. Okay, hold it. Feet, you hold the light. We'll just get our hand in here. And these really release pretty easily. Kind of spin out. Hell. Adam, I don't know if you can zoom in and see that or not. It's hard to see, but they're splitting. All we got to do is just pop them out.
Just a second, let me. Right there, Wade. All right, show them now.
We can see the keepers spreading. Really just fling them out of the way. There's one.
That was perfect. We should have made that window just a little bit taller, shouldn't
No, you're good. All right, we should be able to let go. And the other one's caught on the inside. It's fine. It's out of the way, though. Go ahead and raise me up, Wade. Okay. Made you a new tool. All right. We'll go back over onto the table and finish disassembly of the drum. Rolling. All right, we're back over here on the table. Keepers are out of the way, undamaged, unscathed. When I spoke about these keepers, what we're looking for, you see how these are flat? You know, we don't have any ridges, ripples, nothing like that. This is flat, this is good, this is completely reusable. If you pull yours out and these are all tweaked and bent, you guys need to try to straighten them back out or source new ones. Both of those look great. Go ahead and remove our bevel spring itself and our piston. Now this one, we got it. Sometimes I do have to flip these over and whack them on the back with a little dead blow to make them fall out, no big deal. Piston's out of the way now. And as I've done on all the other pistons, let's take a good look at the lip. No contamination, no debris really to speak of down there. Everything looks great. We do supply new pistons. We do supply new pistons in the kit. But for you guys back home, just always make a good practice of inspecting pistons, especially if you plan on reusing them. Down here, this is what I was talking about. All this nasty oil would have been stuck kind of in that drum. And then also, Adam, if you can zoom in, we're going to talk about an orifice that is in this drum. All right, right here is a bleed orifice. If we go and flip this over, you actually see it on the external side here. And there is a screen. So whenever you guys are cleaning up parts, make sure that you're going through here and properly flushing that. Take some compressed air if you have some. Don't blow the crap out of it, but sit there and just try to go and get any junk, debris that may be in there. But we don't want to go and rupture the screen, so don't take your pick and jab at it. Nothing like that. All right. You can go ahead and pan up at him.
Mr. DeVille.
Yeah. That pretty well concludes our portion of disassembly. Now, I do want to speak to you guys about the case. I'm going to move all this stuff off the bench, clean everything up. We're going to bring the case back up here and talk about some common issues that we may come across on the case side to do with cracking specifically. So we'll be right back. You've got your 68 case up on the table now. Everything's disassembled. What should you look for? Well, number one, this one, not a great example. The case is wet all the way around. That's from us flipping it over on the table and being really messy. But whenever you pull this out of the truck, if you notice that there is, a conglomeration of dirt and dust and everything caked up back here, especially right here on this ridge, that is a red flag for us. Most of the time, close to probably 80-90% of the time when these cases break, it's right here at this ridge, about what I would say 3/4 of the way back on the case. Issues that make the case break, 90% of the time it's going to come down to U-joints. That is the biggest thing. You have a giant transfer case weighing 70-80 pounds off the back of this. If your U-joints are bad, it's vibrating, that is going to definitely break the case. It's unfortunate. It does happen quite a bit. The case is a decent quality. It's die cast. In normal operation, there's never a problem with it. But this one looks great. We don't see any external visual signs. Let's go ahead and flip it over, take a peek on the inside. Just because you don't see it on the outside doesn't mean that we're free and clear. We may have an issue on the inside. And there's a couple other things we'll look at. So let's go and rotate this around. Adam, I'm going to try to come in there with you on that side. How's our lighting look down mainstream?
We'll change it up.
Wade, go ahead and throw me a light on the back side. Just shove it in the tail side there, and let's take a look.
Ooh, that was worse.
That's worse shining back on the camera. Take it away.
You take yours away. I'll readjust. There we go. That's not awful. Go ahead.
Okay. Before we look for a crack, let's look for anywhere in the 2C area of this where the 2C clutch pressure plate steels are going to ride, and that is all of our paths, all of our channels in the case right here, all the way up top. This isn't a normal place to go and wear unless somebody has rebuilt your unit using choline steels. Choline steels have a much harder surface than the aluminum, or even more so than the factory steels did. Those can potentially show wear. But with this one having such low miles, yeah, there's really no wear at all in this, which is great. And we're going to flip this over and try to look in a sight hole and look at the top rib of this case. Oh. Adam, I got a size 15. I'm kicking the crap out of that camera. I'm sorry.
We'll get it.
All right, looking down in here, see if we have any sort of visual cracking.
That light does well.
Very, very good, Wade. Very good.
No, I think.
If you can look, that outer ridge on the case is actually right here. So whenever we were outside looking at the case externally, what we're looking at is this ridge right here. This one looks great, no cracking on it. All in all, very nice. Boys, I think we got a good one to work with here. We're going to go ahead and shoot this over to Eli tonight. Let him go and pressure wash it. If he wants to paint it, let's go ahead and paint it. But other than that, Adam, any questions, anything else that you think we should go over?
I'm good, Wade. No, we went over case flex and we went over what to look for in here. Yeah, I think we covered it all.
Yeah, Wade agrees. I think we've pretty much covered everything. All right, time to go ahead and clean up all these parts, and we'll be back showcasing the new Suncoast kit going in here. Welcome back, guys. Part 2, we are doing reassembly now. Eli's back in the shop with us this morning, and he's going to go and figure out and navigate the part of the transmission that he did not do yesterday. So this will be fun for all of us here at home. Starting off, we are going in complete reverse order. We're starting at the back of the transmission. So the last thing that we pulled out is our low reverse drum. We're going to go ahead and install our new piston with that. Bevel spring, keepers, and then move along to installing the sprag, clutches. You guys at home, in your seal kit from us, there's a nice little cheat sheet in here that goes over specifications on in-play clutch clearance. There's some really good info in here. There's even a clutch apply chart for those of you who don't necessarily know what clutch comes on at what point. So this is a great little piece of paper here. We'll refer to that in the video, for our specifications. I'm probably going to have different ones that I prefer than what's on the sheet, but the sheet is a great general basis of where you should be at. But Eli, go ahead. We've formulated some of our transmission assembly glue over here, if you will, using our SunCoast ATF along with some Lucas assembly oil. First thing, let's go ahead and 2 areas that we want to lube up, inside and outside lip here. Go ahead and you can lube the piston up. Before we drop the piston in, we're also going to put some in the drum itself, okay? And don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. It's all right. It's all right. Ding, 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 ding. Anyways, what else can we talk about that we have laying on the table? I just pulled everything that we cleaned and set it all out here. I'm trying not to put too much on the table to go and confuse everybody or confuse me. We can spend a little bit of time talking about the sprag as he's oiling that up. The sprag that I'm choosing to go back in this truck with is the updated design from Board Warner. It has a harder surface finish to it than the earlier 18 and down trucks did. A lot of builders out there are using like the spring and roller style. I've got a different style that's coming out. It's not ready yet. This, at the time of filming, is what I believe to be a really good selection for what Eli's doing with this truck. All right, now go ahead and take some on your finger and let's run it on the inner radius. Sorry, the outer radius, and then also the inner radius here, okay? And you really can't use too much of that. It'll mix fine with the ATF.
More than that.
Yep. On the inner radius as well. And really the beauty with this piston, with it being so big, it's got a really nice thick lip on it. You don't have to worry too much about cutting that when we're going in. We may, as filming goes on, I may have to go and source an improvised lip seal tool for that. All right, Eli, so the way that this goes in, our concave is going to actually face us, okay? So you're gonna drop this in. Easiest way that I've found is holding it by the center here. Drop it in. We're gonna go as straight as we can, okay? All right, we got our set. We're not completely down all the way. We're gonna kind of wiggle it. I don't think we're straight, buddy. It's okay. And then once we have it kind of started, we'll take this, press, and there we go with that. Now it is imperative that we go and air check all this before we are completely done. We'll go and do that later on the video. Next step, this is your return spring for the low reverse drum, okay? We talked about disassembly yesterday. At this point, the bevel is also gonna face up against us, okay? So go ahead and drop that down in there. All right, just like that. Next step is our keepers. If you guys remember, we had Switchblade Wade make us a nice tool for this job. We're going to go ahead and move over to the press. Using that tool, reinstall this. We'll be right back. All right, guys, we're back over here at the press. I did have to run, and I grabbed a piece of our old sprag assembly just to help us get a little bit more of an even apply on that beveled spring. That way we can go and roll these keepers in. Now, I really can't see, what I'm doing on camera here, so bear with me as I kind of feel my way around. But ideally, same basic principle, get the keeper started in the groove itself. We're off center, I can feel that. Okay, we got the keeper in there. Now we should be able to roll this around. You can kind of see the opening coming up there. We're going to keep rolling it to where this is kind of on the back side in a way. And now I'm able to go and grab my other keeper, roll it in. All right, now they're both together. Last thing you want to do before you go and release pressure, you see how I've got the keepers butted up with each other there? You don't want these keepers spread. If the keepers are spread and you have a gap where the seams meet, that means that whenever we release that pressure, these keepers are going to be damaged. They're not in the right spot, and those fingers are going to come up and kind of pry those out of the groove. But we are good to go on that. Let's go ahead and relieve our pressure. Slowly let it come up. And the pressure's off of it. And that is our finished result. All right, we're back on the build table over here. Drum is assembled with our piston in place. The next step is to drop clutches in. Now, one little tech tip, and I learned this the hard way early on in my career. One of the first ones of these that I built, I wanted to air check at this point in time. This is a very bad time to try to air check this piston, and the reason for it, you have the potential to over travel that piston. When there's no clutch in here, there's no pressure plate or retaining snap ring, that piston can freely travel. Now, it's not going to blow out and, blow up in your face or nothing like that, but what it can do is damage those keepers that we just put in. So this is not the time to air check this drum. If you want to air check this drum independently, wait until you have all your clutches, pressure plate, and snap ring in place, okay? Adam, we can move on up here. First thing to install is our sprag. This is, once again, the newest board warner design. It has a harder surface than the prior generations of this. This is good, straight out of the box. Check it just to verify. Now what we're looking for, let me grab my pointer. There is in the drum a double spline. So right here is a wide spline. All the other ones are just single splines. That is a double wide spline. Our sprag assembly has a double wide spline. You just want to line that up. So go ahead, Eli, do us the honors. You up or down on that, give it a spin, make sure everything's good in place, and we are good to go. Now, we're using board warner clutches going back in this unit. We're not adding any capacity to the low reverse. This comes with 14 decent sized frictions. So you have 7 external spline and then 7 that'll be internal spline. We're gonna go ahead and stack this up. Eli, you can go ahead and start off. We're gonna start with an external spline. So when you're assembling this, the clutch face, you want it to point up. This steel surface on the back right here is going to sit directly on the piston. That way when it actuates, it's moving these straight up. So go ahead, I'll hand you one at a time. Starting with external spline, moving to internal spline. Yeah, it's easier if we just, go straight down on there. Teeth are kind of sharp, so it takes a little while to get those guys to slide over, especially when it's a new sprag. There you go. External spline, clutch facing up. Adam's got some awesome B-roll footage for this series. One thing to point out that we haven't really gone over, and that is, I get the question, do I need to soak these clutches? Do I not need to soak them? My best advice to that is listen to the manufacturer itself. Safe way to do it is always to soak them. In this case, we're trying to do a clean assembly and not make a mess on the table. I'm not soaking them. Board Warner has told me flat out they don't soak their clutches when they assemble units as new, but you listen to some of the old school guys, they swear by it, and it never hurts to have these things soaked. It doesn't change any sort of your clearance or nothing like that, but for ease of video, we're just not soaking these ones. And if we've done everything correct, we should end on an external spline. Moving on to our pressure plate. This beveled edge is going to face up to you, putting the flat side directly on the clutch itself. Another little pro tip, as we're building, as we're assembling, you need to rag around. I'm aware of that. There's things that happen. But what we don't want to use is something like a terry cloth, a wash rag. I really like these lint-free shop towels. Microfiber, a good microfiber works well too, but there's a lot of sharp edges. Sometimes the microfiber tears. These are great for lint-free. So just give that a good little wipe down. I saw a piece of fuzz, and that's what sparked my idea on that. Okay, with this in place now, you may ask me, well, how do I set clutch clearance? What is my clutch clearance supposed to be? If we go and pull out our cheat sheet that is provided with the kit, we can actually see factory specifications for our low reverse clutch pack, which is right here, low reverse clutch pack clearance. Let's go and read this off in inches. That is 46 thousandths of an inch, all the way up to 82 thousandths of an inch. How we set our clutch clearance on this comes down to our snap ring selection from the factory. If you're using the same pressure plate, the same drum, and the same piston, which we are not, you really don't have to worry too much about that. But from the factory, there are, I believe, 3 different sizes of snap rings. If you want to pan over, I'll try to show the easiest way to identify the one that goes here that you've taken out. All right, so this one, and it might be a little hard to see being that this truck does not have many miles on it. Okay, this is the right snap ring that I pulled out of the pile. However, my easy identifier that I was hoping to show you guys is not there. Adam, if you pan forward and look inside the drum itself, these teeth right here will typically leave a nice little W witness mark on the snap ring itself. In this case, being such low mileage, there's really no witness mark to be had on that. I just know from doing so many of these that this is in fact the right snap ring. They don't always look this way. If you have a different size snap ring, our little indications here will be different. Some of these will be a double, but this is the right snap ring. There's also one that has an angular cut right here as an identifier as well of a different size. But this is the one that came out. We're going to go ahead and go back with that. Okay. Now at this point, it would be a great idea if you want to independently air check this without it being in the case. This is the appropriate time for that. Spinning around, if you wanted to air check it, this is the feed hole for it. Go ahead, you can run shop air to this. In reverse apply, you'll see upwards of 250 PSI in this drum. I assure you, shop air will not harm it as long as your shop air isn't full of water. We don't want to have that happening. Easier way to go and check clutch clearance too is getting a pick under here. We want to pull our snap ring up all the way around. Make sure that it's not falling down. And you guys at home using a set of feeler gauges, we're going to go and select, you know, go middle of the road. You know, this one I'm going to say is probably 72 thousandths roughly. If you want to give me a second, I'll locate some feeler gauges and I'll show you guys the easy way to go and check this just for reassurance. But I'm looking at it, we're well within spec. Brandon was nice enough to locate us some good feeler gauges here. Easiest way to check this, and I've been playing with it off camera just to save some time, but come in at a straight angle, press down against the pressure plate after we've already moved our snap ring up as far as we can in the location there. Roll in there, get a good little feel, a little bit of wiggle, a little bit of drag. I said 72 thousandths, I believe. We're actually right around 68 to 70, so pretty close. Not bad for some old eyesight. This is done. We can set this off to the side, buddy. We are back. Eli was nice enough to grab us our rear planetary set. We're going to walk you guys through how to set this back up, get the right bearings in place, and move forward with that. In our disassembly portion of this, we did talk about our splines back here, inspecting these. Now that it's clean, we might be able to see it a little bit better. But there's some witness marks. You know, the transfer case engagement ends about right where the tip of my pick is. This one shows very minimal wear as expected with such low miles, but always be sure to check that, make sure there's no twist, make sure that our splines are still a good width on there. Now, after I cleaned this, I pre-stacked it up kind of in the same order just so Eli, who wasn't here yesterday, could easily see how this went together. Starting with our output carrier itself, we can remove the ring gear. And also, you guys at home may be asking, well, how does a sprag actually work? How does it engage? Eli, did you set that off to the side? If you want to run and grab that low reverse drum, I'll show these guys at home real quick how to do this. But these right here are actually what bites into our sprag assembly and prevents it from turning. Eli, let's move that right here. So, and I'll show you once we have this assembly done on the bench, I'll kind of stack it up externally here, but we can get this right in place there and give it a spin. It will spin clockwise. When we try to go back counterclockwise, it locks in. So that is how the sprag assembly works with our little sun gear here. Move that over to the side just for the time being. All right, and this is where I wish that we had some thicker transmission jelly. I didn't bring it with me on this trip, and Adam had a very valid point. He said, hey, why don't you guys go ahead and throw a little bit of that in with your kits? And I think the first thing I do when I get back is add that to a sub item. You know, I pride myself on these kits and talking about how they come complete. And buddy, if you got to go and buy some transmission jelly, it ain't complete. So you got me on that one. All right. New bearings out of the box. All of your black bearings, there are 3 in the kit. All 3 of these will be consumed in this rear planetary set. And I'm struggling opening a bag of a bearing here. It appears that my pick is no longer as sharp as it once was. Okay. The first one, and in this case, it'll be the last one that I'm doing because I don't have that heavyweight grease to hold it in place, would be this one. Now, all of these black ones, as we're assembling, the black is going to face up. There are alignment tabs here. The alignment tabs, we talked about that on disassembly. Let's cruise over to the low reverse drum. The alignment tabs just help keep this centered in the bore where it's supposed to ride. It just helps it kind of stay in place there. We're going to flip this around. We're going to install our sun gear. This is a factory piece. Everything down here is factory. We're not touching it. Our widest black bearing, if you will, goes straight on there. If you want to take some assembly goo, and just kind of pre-oil that so it's not dry, now you can take a spoonful of it. Just kind of dump that around there, give it a good little swirl. Okay. Move along. We talked about on the disassembly video needing to go and inspect your pinions. I really can't stress that enough. That's the last thing you want, is to go through, spend a bunch of money on a kit, and only to find out you've got noise because of pinions coming apart. Okay. Same way with this one, we're back to our other two black bearings. These are identical, interchangeable if you will. We're gonna go ahead and put a little dab on here just so hopefully it holds in place. And when I'm at the shop and have the grease, I don't really have to worry about it being stuck in place. With this one, I got a feeling as soon as I flip it over, we'll probably lose it, and that's okay. We'll come back to that whenever we're actually dropping stuff in the case. But for the time being, we'll flip this back over. At this point in time, we can set our ring gear over the top. And that is locked in all the way. We'll go back over here to our stack of snap rings. Let me see if I can find the right one. Okay. In this mound of stuff, I mean, it took me a while to be able to get to this point where I can easily identify them. I've hand built probably 3,000 of these 68s at the shop. So it comes second nature to me. But this particular snap ring, the easiest way to identify that it's the right one, number one, our points down here are straight. There is no recession, there is no cutoff. And then also our overall width of this, okay? Adam, let me grab any other one from back here. Our overall width of this snap ring is thinner, as y'all can see. Pretty much every other snap ring in the 68 has the same width as this. This one itself is quite narrow in nature. Assembling that, easiest way I found, just kind of lay this on the side, keeping pressure just to make sure that it doesn't come apart. Eli, I want you to walk this around, okay? It's going to reside in this snap ring groove. It's kind of blind, you can't really see it. Right here, okay? So go ahead, I'll keep this held together for you. You get her in place. And you're doing it the right way. Eli's never done snap rings before. Easiest way to do it is get one side started and then kind of walk it in the groove all the way around. I'm going to help you just a little bit here and keep some tension on that side. What you don't want to do is what he's doing right now, and that is put both ends in before the back half is in place. If you're having a little trouble doing it by hand, you can always grab a screwdriver and just help push it down in the hole. There we go. That's the click we're looking for. Now you just got to worry about the top half, and it's in. And as expected, our bearing did fall out. That's okay. I'll address that on final assembly in the case itself. All right, we got our center support on the bench, and this is probably one of the first proprietary pieces that we're going to start installing here. Step one, we have our new 4C piston. Same way that you installed the other piston. This one's got a little trick. It's a little bit harder to work in here. I may have to go and use my pick. That's probably a cardinal sin to most people at home. They don't like using sharp objects whenever we're trying to install rubber pieces. If you're using a pick, I prefer a rounded one, which I do have below the table. But a little pro tip on this one, sometimes it's a booger to get in place. I like to take it in my hand, 2 fingers on the inside, 1 big thumb on the outside, and I kind of work my way around, and all I'm doing is softening up that rubber. You know, if we can catch it on video, it kind of flares out at the bottom. And just what I'm doing is rolling that around, making sure it's malleable. These have been packaged up for who knows how long, sitting there. So we just want to make them workable. And that's probably as good as we're going to get that. So Eli, same deal. This one's small enough, we can probably dunk it in our little tank here. We'll roll it around. You are going to go and lube up the inner and outer radius of our center support. and then we'll work her down in place. And just to be clear, I know I said proprietary. The piston itself, not proprietary. That is just a factory replacement. Even if you guys are not doing a full category 3 like we are, this is still the same for everything all the way down to our Guardian series.
What way does it go?
Good question. So same way, the concave, what we're calling the concave is this recession here, that's going to face up. Okay, same way Eli stopped. And this is really hard to explain if this is your first piston you're installing. Like I said, I've done a number of these. I can kind of feel when it wants to get started, and then we're going to roll it in. Now this one is going to fight us. This is where a good lip seal tool would definitely come in place here, but I'm going to try to get us a start. And what I'm doing, I'm pushing down, keeping constant pressure, as well as gently pushing that rubber lip into place. If you keep constant pressure on it, you'll feel when it wants to start to go into place. Now let's see if we can roll her. It does not want to roll. That's fine. Just take your time doing this. You know what would work really good is a flathead. I'd have more confidence with this one being such a pain. If we had a small flathead, like a pocket flathead, that would be awesome for this. Wade had actually a perfect lip seal tool. I was able to find that, so we're going to work that behind there. Just trying to run our way around. Now the reason this is a lip seal tool, it's very dull, there's no sharp edges on it, and every corner is rounded. So it makes it easy to get behind the piston and just run our way around. Keeping constant pressure as we're doing this. You don't want to go too fast. Now the reason you want to keep constant pressure is if you let up even just a little bit, that seal is going to automatically pop back up and you're starting from scratch. And we're kind of at a stopping point there. It got tight, so I'm going to gently pull this out and work our way around the other side. So that's a tight point as well. Okay, so you see how the piston just cocked? That's okay. That does indicate we've got this backside started, so it's okay to leave that a little bit cocked. As we're walking this around, you're going to want to keep pressing down, and the piston will fall as we're moving around. When we get close to these tangs on the drum, it gets tight. The pick's a little bit thick, so take your time walking around there. This is super hard to see on camera, but there's about a millimeter of the lip that we're fighting with here. But if you go and manhandle this in place, it is going to cause damage to that lip seal. And you're going to have a leak in your 4C clutch, and it's not going to apply properly. All right, so this side's rolling pretty good now. We're going to move and rotate to this side. I can see just a little bit of the lip seal right there holding us up. And there are better tools out there. One of my favorite tools, it is a plastic disc, and think about kind of a pizza cutter size. You can actually work that around. It's very, very quick. And with it being plastic, there's virtually no risk of damaging the piston itself. And just to be clear too, you don't have to replace pistons. If there's no issues with them, don't feel like you have to. But it is in the kit. And I'll be honest with you guys, cleaning up last night, threw away the old piston, so we're going to go ahead and install this new one. Okay, we are right there at it. Okay. That's fully seated all the way down. Once again, air check. This one fought me a little bit more than what I would have liked. However, it looks good and clean. You know, an easy way to tell if you did a good job or not initially. If you forced it in there, sometimes you'll see what looks like hair popping up around here, and that's actually pieces of rubber that you've tore off. But this one looks good. Adam, back out here for just a second for me. With the piston in place, this is the point in time that we're going to install our return spring. With the Suncoast, we provide you with a snap ring retainer. What this does is completely encapsulate the snap ring to where it cannot spread and pop out once it's seated. Why is this such a big deal? Once again, cores. Cores are a great way to learn failure points. And we had a rash of cores that came in with this blown out. There's several other people out there who now make one of these, but I can proudly say SunCoast was the first to pioneer that particular snap ring retainer. What you want to do, pick a half. It really does not matter. They are twins. There is no difference between the two halves. Get a good set of pliers, and we're going to go all the way to the base. And if you look on the back, you'll actually be able to see better once I go and remove the spring. But we're going to go and don't do what I just did there. My hand slipped and we actually bent the spring. That's a prime example of what you don't want to do. And even though I've done thousands of these, that still happens. We'll straighten that out once it comes off. You just want to grasp it and kind of give it a twist and a pull, and it should come off in one piece. And that is what's attaching it right there. So it doesn't take a lot to pull it off. You see some guys that really fight with these and they're prying and pulling. We don't want to go and damage the spring. That's not the goal here. We just want to simply remove these guys. And ideally, the smaller pliers that you use, the less likely you are to damage this. And in the case that you do damage one like I did, it's not the end of the world. We'll get this out of place. I'll spend some time straightening it back out. The coil spun itself. Now, even though this one's ugly, we can still use it. I would recommend that this broken part, not broken, but the part that's now bent goes down. And what it's going to do, that inner pin, we'll call it, that inner pin is actually going to help us keep it a little bit straighter. And once we have our top cap on there, it really will not be a big deal. Our top cap will go and keep it evenly spaced. So crisis is averted there. Go ahead and take each spring and we're going to slide it around the pin. Okay. Now, once these are all in place like that, go ahead and grab your retainer itself. As you can see, we machined all the spring pockets that this will sit in, and just kind of walk it around. You'll feel them as they come in. Our problem child went in place, and that is it. We can now go ahead and set this in place right there. Now you're going to ask, well, shoot, how do I get the snap ring into the retainer? And for that, we're going back over to the press. Easiest way that I found, once again, in the spirit of DIY, taking 2 3/8 extensions on opposing sides. It has enough rigidity, we can actually press this down, get the snap ring in without distorting our retainer. So we'll be right back at the press. All right, Eli has left the building. We got Dennis's other son here, Wade, with us.
Oh,
I had to do that. That's a blooper reel. That was on purpose. All right, keep rolling though. We'll cut that and save your bloopers.
no, we won't. No, we won't. We're going to roll that.
All right, we're back at the press though. We have our center support. We're about to install our snap ring into the 4C retainer. Having a little bit of issues with the press here. We got 2 6-inch extensions and that's gonna work out perfectly. However, Wade, I'm gonna hold these in place while you jack me down. So without cutting the camera off, I'm gonna hold these in place.
You guys have got these Harbor Freight presses in your shop. You know the fixturing is not a science. It's
Hold what you got. Go one more.
a necessity.
All right. Wade, go ahead and put that in for me. No orientation. It's flat.
All right.
Put it in. You want a little trick though, and this will work for people at home.
Absolutely.
All right. Use your opening. Put your opening at one of the extensions, and that'll help you kind of work everything out. Help it go in a little bit easier.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, you're so close. You're almost there. I think if I go one more, we'll be good. I don't think we went quite enough. 2 more.
That's it.
Okay. Go and get a close up. That is 100% in place. Snap ring retainer is now secured in place. Let's go ahead and move on to another proprietary piece from Suncoast, and that is our billet piston. Yeah, I've got some seals I need out of their way. Just give me 1 second with
Give it
this.
a shot.
Yeah, we're gonna need it on this. Now, unlike the factory piston, it was a bonded piston, meaning the rubber was attached to the metal portion of it. Now, we talked earlier about how thin the apply area is. I mean, it's in the garbage now. We got it on the teardown video, but it was very, very thin. It's only about as wide as this pick. No kidding. So this does 2 things for us. It widens the load. So whenever we're hitting this with 200 PSI, like our valve body supplies, hitting it with 200 PSI, there's less deflection. And then also the overall height of this is a little bit shorter. And that allows us to run 4 clutches instead of the factory 3. Now with this not being a bonded style, this is just a billet aluminum piece. We do have seals in there. They're D-rings. And what we're looking for, Wade, there is a sub pack that says 2-4 clutch on it.
So that's it.
2-4 clutch. There we go.
The size gave it away, Mom.
Yep. Badge for those of you guys at home that want to go and reference that. I'll cut the badge open real quick and grab these. And these seals, there's no orientation on these. You know, we talk about lip seals. Difference between a lip seal and a D-ring. You know, this is not an O-ring. This is flat and then goes to a rounded edge. There's no orientation in this. Whereas a lip seal, if you had a lip seal and something, you got to think where the fluid's coming in at and put the lip down towards the fluid. But this, it goes either way. If you guys notice, there are 2 seals left in the bag. Those will not be used. We're only using the 2 medium size. Actually, I messed that up. We need the big one and the medium size. Listen, give me a break, okay? I was doing 8 speeds 2 days ago. 10 speeds on the way up here, right? My brain gets a little scattered at times. All I'm doing here is just straightening this out from packaging. You know, they kind of get wadded up and we want them to be free, so run them through our hands there. The big one is going to go on the outside. Line it up with a groove and just work your way around. Make sure that we're fully seated, and we are.
I can see if that was not in that recess correctly, it would totally blow by. You get fluid blow
Oh,
by.
absolutely. And whenever we're going back together, we really have to pay attention when we're setting this back down in there. Because like you said, if we go and pinch it, you're done for. All right, now we have one more seal that gets installed on the inner radius right here. And that one installs the same exact way. There's a groove. I'll try to go slow with this so we can see it. And just work your way around with it. This one kind of got to pack it in place. It's a tight fit, but it does fit. Just like that, and then I like to go and run my hands around it just to make sure it sits in the groove freely and we're not bound up anywhere.
So these seals would be the replacement for the stock apply too, right?
No.
Okay.
Very good question. And I guess that's not a fair answer to that. So these seals originated from the gasoline version of the 68.
No.
Going all the way back to the 45 and 545 RFE, these seals would have gone on those pistons. So for us, it was easier, and at the end, cheaper for you guys as well to use an existing seal instead of redesigning that portion of it. And that is why we have 2 left in that bag. They're no longer being used. You know, we're not using the factory 2-piece style piston. So
that's a hell of an example of innovation from you all.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got our honey over here. We're gonna tilt her up on the side, give it a good little douse of it.
Yeah, we need some trans gel around here.
We do, and that's on me for not bringing it, but in the spirit of DIY, you know, not everybody's going to have that. Adam brought it up earlier and said, hey man, that would be a great accoutrement to your kit, and I have to agree with it. I think that's something that when I get back to the shop, we'll go ahead and add. And
No.
all right, we're going to get a little bit on our fingers here and run it around just so it's not a completely dry seal. Going in the bore. Okay. This one, it is a little bit different to install. We're not going to go straight down. It is a tight fit, so what we're going to do is come in at an angle, get it hooked. See how this corner is actually below. Hard to see with that black anodizing on there, but this is actually below the lip there. This one is above the lip here. We're above the sidewall of the drum. And we're going to kind of roll this top one in place. So I like to also take my thumbs, push in the opposing direction. That way we're compressing that seal as much as we can right there. And then just kind of walk it down.
Don't creel it.
Yeah.
Don't creel it.
Yep. All right, now that we got the inner seal started, we're going to go to the outer seal. This one, it's a lot easier. Our inner seal is going to act like a guide for us. So what I normally do with this one is take it in my hands like that. And for those of you that know Blake Carter, I really could use his grip right now, but we're just going to go and squeeze it in place and walk it around. That's a good sound. That means we got a good seal. Yeah. Got a good seal there, and that's it. Now that's in place, we do have to secure it. Adam has his elbow on all my snap rings here. Guys, remember this from teardown. This is the bevel. One good thing, obviously I'm biased to SunCoast products, but we really try to factor everything when we make a part. There is a recession, and it's going to be hard to see once again, but there's a recession built into this piston that really centers our bevel spring we set it in. So the bevel is going to face up. That sits in there, and it moves a lot less than what the factory one is. Factory one can slide all around. This one's secured a lot better in the bore. And then we're going to go and find our accompanying snap ring. This one is, how would I describe this one? It is a pretty wide snap ring, and it's not even a, I don't know if the camera will pick that up, it's not a perfect circle. This one's meant to have tension on it. So when it's actually in place, it's going to be spread open more so.
Yeah, it is oblong.
It's a little bit oblong. Same way with any other snap ring, really. Pick one side, doesn't matter which side. This one's not beveled, it's just a straight snap ring. Pick one side, we're going to stretch it around. And we need to find our dead blow, which was right down here, and it still is.
Nice dull flat tip screwdriver.
Well, and you know, normally you give me crap about a dull one. Dull one's perfect for this. What we're not trying to do is damage any of the aluminum on it.
Yeah.
So easiest way is get right here at the start of it. We're gonna give her a good tap. We're gonna go in kind of at a 45. You want to hold? Thank you, Wade. You really just walk around now.
You gotta watch your aluminum there.
Watch your fingers too.
Yeah, watch your fingers.
Dadgum rounded screwdriver. Wade told me about it. I like to do one for good measure just at the very ends of these. And boys, that's all we got for that. Our center support is done except for our 4C clutches. 4C clutches I have just to the left of me here. We're going back with a factory count. You know, there's some people out there who want to jam a bunch of clutches in here. At the end of the day, every builder has their own preference. We've done a lot of extensive testing. We know that at 700 horsepower and decent tuning, 3 clutch count is not an issue whatsoever. Talking with the guys from Board Warner, there comes a point of diminished return. You can pack so many clutches in something that you don't have enough steel to dissipate the heat. And that's where a lot of our innovation, you know, even prior to me speaking with Board Warner on some stuff, I've noticed that in our builds. I personally go and test, you know, if we make a change to the clutches, I go and test those. Every single time that I've came across a clutch pack where we, you know, jammed in a bunch of clutches, I've noticed that they don't take the heat near as well. So you got to find a balance between having steel surface area and clutch surface area.
Thinner steel is more deflection.
Thinner steels do deflect more as well. That is correct. And one thing that a lot of people tend to mess up on, this is your pressure plate for the 4C. It actually goes at the top of the stack. A lot of people, you know, from building, you know, go back and think about a 48. 48 pressure plate and overdrive, it's at the bottom. Well, 68, the pressure plate is at the top of this clutch stack up. And this is the smallest snap ring of the group as far as clutch packs go. Should be this guy right here. And it is. There's really not another one in this unit that's a similar size or shape to this. And in place we are. Now, in the spirit of checking our clutch clearance, same deal as before, we're going to make sure that snap ring is pulled all the way up in the groove. Work it around. Wait, on our handy dandy paper that is in our gasket kit, would you kindly tell me what our clutch clearance is? It's on that page there. Yep, at the bottom here. Clutch clearance. What we're looking for is our 4C clutch pack.
4C clutch pack clearance is 770 thou to 1.390 millimeter. I apologize. 0.770 millimeter to 1.390 millimeter.
Now, for us Americans, what does that translate to in inches?
30 thou or 50
30 thou. Okay,
yeah,
30 thou.
55
Okay, so 30 to 55 thousandths is the appropriate clearance. I've got a 30 thou feeler gauge. Same as before, guys. Let's go and slide it in here. Okay, 30 fits. Pretty nice and easy. Let's go up. I'm going to say this one's probably going to be 40-ish. See what we can find. Oh, y'all know I'm 30, almost 31. My eyesight's really going downhill. Ain't that a shame?
Yeah, it's the close-ups that you can get you.
All right, 40's going in. I think we can go to a 45. And there's a 15. All right, we're going in there. I'm actually getting some drag on that. We're going to go ahead and call it there. We're right around the 40 thou mark, well within our spec. People are going to ask, what happens if a clutch pack is too tight, or what happens if a clutch pack is too loose? On a Lepellier Ravenaugh gear set, which is what this transmission is, all of your 6 speeds, 8 speeds, 10 speeds function on a Lepellier Ravenaugh ideal, right? and that is saying that it's a clutch-to-clutch transmission. There's no band in the unit. Everything is a oncoming clutch versus an offgoing clutch. So for this thing to shift gears, you have to have a clutch that comes on and a clutch that's going off. They're going to pass each other. So if our clutch clearance is out of whack, you know, on the looser side, now we're going to go and have a flare shift maybe. You know, we have a clutch pack that's coming off sooner than the next one's coming on.
Yeah.
If we run it too tight, we all know what's going to happen. Run it too tight, you're going to go and drag that clutch. It's going to prematurely burn it out.
So there's a sweet spot.
There's a sweet spot, and that's where, and these, let me be clear with this. These that we are showing here, these are factory specifications. Everything that we've done up until this point has been a factory Borg-Warner clutch with a factory clutch count. So we can go off of that, no issues whatsoever. And even going into the overdrives. Wade, what does it show on there for your overdrive clutch?
OD clearance is 30,000 to 63,000.
It's a pretty large general range. Mine, I like to run anywhere. I tighten that up a little bit. I go from 45 to 55. That's where I run on that. Underdrive is probably going to show you right about the same.
Underdrive, yeah, 40 to 68.
Yeah, and I go and split that right in the middle. I'm 50 to 52 or 50 to 55 on that one. So even though we change clutches in other clutch packs, we're really not deviating much from the factory specifications.
So loose is lazy, tight is heat soaked.
Tight will too, yeah, if you get it way too tight, you run into an issue where you potentially have a tie-up if it's not tight enough to go and drag that clutch. You run into a tie-up. And that is one of the biggest things with 68s. It does adapt. You know, that's why it's such a large range. It's going to adapt. CVIs are going to tell us how much oil volume it takes to actuate a certain clutch pack. And it will adjust for that. And that's why we stress there is a break-in period. Now, it's not like an engine break-in period. It is simply for this transmission to learn its new parts that are in it.
So what do they do, Montana, if they get a setup that's too tight? I mean, you probably wouldn't advise them to get a hold of a lap plate down the apply, maybe reach out to you guys, get a thinner apply, or what?
Well, and with this, the snap ring is the deciding factor in all this. Factory steels, factory thick clutches, factory uncut pressure plate leaves one variable, and that is the snap ring itself. But I understand if you're at home, that would be the way that I would do it. If I was at home and I'm in a pinch and I've got to get this done, I can't go and run up to the store and buy a snap ring. I'm going to go and take this pressure plate and flat sand, take whatever I need. Start small, start 10 thou, see where we're at there. That's going to wrap us up for the center support section of this. I'm going to go ahead and clear the bench off. We'll be right back. Let's talk drums. The Category 3 kit comes with a pre-assembled drum. I have took the liberty to disassemble a good percentage of it. However, when I came down to our snapping retainer, I realized that I broke our TP15 and cannot find another one. It's kind of getting late here, so we're going to have to roll forward and just show a factory drum up to the point of actually installing clutches. Really wanted to show you guys the differences within our drum, but I can explain those pretty easily as well. So let's come over here and focus on the 68 drum and basic theory of operation on it. Factory shell, factory inner, factory input clutch hub. The factory input clutch hub, really no issues with that until we're turning big horsepower. At that point, what we see are failures in the splines itself up here, where our input shaft would spline in at. It still is a rare occurrence, but I do come across once in a while. You'll have a truck that's making good power, or you'll come across one that has a pretty good violent lockup going down the track or sled pull track, and it'll strip the splines out. So we do offer a billet fixture for that. However, with the Category 3, knowing what this truck is going through, we did not opt for that. Back to what I was saying before, my goal isn't to go and sell everybody on parts they don't need. My goal is to sell something that's going to last, and that's what we have here. We can set this aside for now. On the disassembly, we did talk about our green and red seals that will go on there. The green seal is just a little bit larger in diameter, and it's going to go at the bottom of this. And it just sits in place there. Now our red one, Adam's got it zoomed in, I think, in the right location. We've got to be careful where we put the red one. There's two pockets right here that are side by side. One of these pockets is actually for a snap ring. This upper one, this lower one is the O-ring groove. And just roll it around, roll it down. That side of things is done. Now it is time for our reverse seal. This one is actually the same as your overdrive apply seal. They're located in this sub kit that says input clutch drum or input clutch hub. Can't remember which one it actually says on it. It says drum. So everything that we have installed so far comes directly out of this package. The two larger seals, like I said, one's reverse, one is your overdrive apply. These are both the same exact seal. Now these are lip seals. You guys just heard me talk about D-rings versus a lip seal. Lip seal is designed to have fluid come on the back side of it and force the lip out as a sealing surface. So we need to think, how does this get its oil? And the answer is oil is going to come out and come from the back side and seal up. So what we want to do is have our lip facing down. I hope I'm describing that in a clear way. Adam, does that make sense to you? Perfect. And this is the same as really any other seal. Just walk it around, take your time with it. Get it in place, good to go. Moving along, in factory form, your inner drum does not get a seal installed at all on it, okay? Factory drum, no seals. You guys remember that. This outer portion here, this outer portion to this inner portion here. Okay, so what we're looking at is this area right here. Factory form, this is your apply area. That would be your apply piston area of it, is that about an inch or so all the way around. What we're doing with our Suncoast drum, we're actually relocating one of the seals to our inner race here. And the reason for that, centrifugal apply. Sometimes you'll run across this on the forums. People talk about 68s and centrifugal apply. At high RPM, by design, we can have a leak. Your sealing surface is in your outer drum right here. Well, whenever this thing's spinning, you know, if you're turning this thing 5,000 RPMs like some of us do, that seal wants to retract back in your outer drum. That doesn't seal well against this. Whenever the Suncoast drum was designed, we opted to relocate this factory style inner seal. We completely got rid of that. We went to what's called a hex seal. This seal actually acts, it's one O-ring, so to speak, but it acts as four. There's 4 contact points, whereas a normal standard O-ring, you only have 1 contact point. Okay, does that make sense? That makes sense. I wish that I could take this apart and show you guys, but anyways, that hex seal, we relocated to the inner drum. And the reason for that, centrifugal apply, now as that seal is expanding, it's actually helping us create a better seal. The harder you spin it, the more that wants to shoot out and create a better seal. Now that's one thing that we redesigned on there. The other side of things is the piston diameter. Talked about our drum having 33% larger piston apply. How are we achieving that? We're using the entire drum as our apply, okay? This surface over here on our drum is now smooth, and that is the actual sealing surface for the outer portion. So instead of just having this little 1-inch ledge, we have the entire drum helping us apply. And that is one of the ways that we can easily increase the horsepower potential of a drum, of a clutch, is by being able to go and grab onto it harder. Assembly for this goes as follows. Your drum, you have your factory O-ring. This is for you guys at home who may not have a V2 drum, by the way. But your factory O-ring goes in right there. It came in the same sub kit as our input clutch hub. And then we have our lip seal right here. I have the pick underneath the lip. That way you guys can actually see which orientation it goes. Okay. Getting ready to assemble this. We're going to take our inner drum, line it up. With assembly lube, I did not do that on this, just for show and tell purposes. Kind of get there, line it up, and you'll feel when it's ready to go down. Once we get to this point, our seals are starting to engage. All we need to do is press down. Now that's fully seated. Okay, getting ready to install our input clutch hub. For simpleness, we're going to go ahead and remove our seals here. You guys at home do not need to do this. I'm doing this just for ease of installation, showing us how things go. If we notice, there are splines external on the input clutch hub. These splines engage with your inner drum here. So as we're coming down with this, we get to a point where it kind of feels like a hang up, and you've actually got to rotate this just slightly until it engages. I'll pull it back up so we can see it again. We come to a ledge point, you gotta rotate it so it actually starts to seat. Now once you get to that point, go ahead, take all three and just push down until you hear a click like that. As soon as I flip it over, I like to align the inner drum and the outer drum. And what I mean by that, we can see on the outside of this drum, there's 4 cutouts, 4 square cutouts. The inner drum itself has a bunch of other cutouts. Doesn't matter the orientation, just pick one. I like to use a pick or a screwdriver, get it in between the two, and just rotate, rotate, until our windows are lined up. Now at this point, if you guys remember from our disassembly video, I had a heck of a time removing the snap ring. We're going to go ahead and reinstall it. With this being a beveled snap ring or a tapered snap ring, there is a right or a wrong way to do it. Easiest way for me to remember this when I was starting off building, we see these 2 openings on the snap ring, okay? The physical tab are different sizes. We have a large one and we have a smaller one. If you can remember large on left when you're installing, you'll never be wrong on it. So large on left, what that looks like is large on left. Set that in place. Let me find my other snap ring pliers that did work for removal. We're not, because we're not using the stock drum. That's a great question, Wade. Okay. We're not. I just did this for video purposes.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody at home was going to ask you.
Yeah, Wade was asking if we're going to take this back apart and install our 2 seals, and the answer is no, we're not. This kit that we're using, we're going to go forward and use the V2 drum with it. Those are the ones I was looking for. So what this drum is going to look like, what its purpose is going to be in life after this quick little video is probably wall art. I'm going to give this to Eli or Wade and let you guys make something cool out of it. And once again, these are not the right snap ring pliers for this job, but we're making it work, okay?
What kit would this assembly portion of this video?
For Suncoast, this would be a Guardian. Once we go to a category 1, that gets a different drum. Going to the category 2, 3, and 4, that gets the V2 drum. I'm going to go ahead and fight with this for just a split second. Wait, if you want to grab a screwdriver, as I'm spreading that, go ahead and push it down for me. Okay. Push down kind of on the side back here somewhere. So as I spread this, we're just going to get it down in place. Tentatively. You about got it now, good. Oh, we're so close. So close.
Eli would have had it.
He would have, first try. That boy's a stud. All right. Do this with me. Let's just do this. You work that.
I wasn't doing a bad job with it.
Well, the only reason we're actually putting this on, I want to show the guys at home a little trick that I've learned throughout the years. Okay.
Oh, actually, I got a little bit more.
Hold what you got and I'll walk around to you. All right, you can let go. I just don't want to be too rough with it. There you go. Okay, let go. There we go. All right. Once we have the snap ring in place, I really like, just for added security, I like to make sure that our snap ring opening is fully seated and closed as much as it can be. This is where I need a slightly sharper screwdriver. Slightly smaller than that though. This one will do for now, just for purpose. But what I like to do is come up here to the opening and get a good screwdriver. Go ahead and set the screwdriver in the opening. Nice tap there. Come to the other side and do the same thing. Nice tap there. That way we know it's fully seated. There's less potential for that thing to pop out of place. So setting this to the side over here, we're done with it.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Moving over to the Suncoast drum. Adam, come up here and let's get a close up. I talked about the Suncoast drum coming with our snap ring retention solution kit already installed. This is one of those pieces. This retainer sits over that snap ring that we had just installed and is secured in place with 3 bolts. This further prevents the possibility of that beveled, that tapered snap ring coming out of its place and allowing the inner drum to over travel and hit the center support. That for us, and I think for the whole 68 RFE community, was a big ordeal. No matter what you did, a new input clutch hub, new snap ring, you would still have these come back. There wasn't a good explanation as to why. A lot of these units, you would think, okay, well, if the inner drum over traveled, maybe we had too much clutch clearance, or maybe clutches were burnt and then it over traveled. That's not the case. We had numerous units that came in, both under warranty and also cores where the clutches were fine and that snap ring had still failed.
And you all sell that as a kit, fixture, drill
Exactly.
bits, and everything.
I do. I do sell that snap ring retention solution as a kit. We really should do a tech video on that at a different date, but it's a really nice piece. It's a what we call a jig. So it's a tool as well as a holding fixture in one. It's a really nice piece. But once we have that in place there, secured, we're going to go ahead and move forward with installing our pistons. So the first piston we're going to be installing is a new underdrive piston. And the same way that we've done, all of our other ones, make sure it's well and greased up. Before I left the shop, this one was pre-assembled. We do have some assembly grease left on here. However, that being said, more never hurt us, right? Just enough to get it a little bit wet. I'll set that in place there.
Any specific orientation for that oil really fold?
No specific orientation. It is worth noting, if you're not opting to use a new piston, thanks for bringing that up. If you're not opting to use a new piston, make sure that this screen is clean. The factory one is a little bit different. We use Alto pistons in our builds. But if you choose to use a factory style piston, make sure the screen is clean. Flip it over, and we're going to go ahead and walk it in. Pretty as you please. Now, I will say, it's normally not that easy. The reason this one was so much easier is because it was already pre-installed. The rubber was accustomed to the bore. It was not spread out. If you remember on teardown, we had an issue with our balance spring. It was actually blown apart. The retaining clips, they failed. And quite frankly, I've seen that a lot on the 18, 19, 20 trucks. I can theorize on that. Late 18 trucks into 19, 20, they have what's called an underdrive pulse. That's the only thing that I've noticed in the unit that would affect this being changed. So as you're going down the road, the factory operating system of this truck wants to keep as much air out of this underdrive system as possible. So you're cruising in 6th gear at 70 mile an hour. This clutch pack is not operational. As you're going down the road, the solenoid burps. And the only thing that I can theorize is just overtime fatigue causes this to break.
Cycle fatigue.
Cycle fatigue, that's it. And this piston, yes, it is correct. You only have one seal on the outer portion of this. The sole job of this actually has 2 jobs. Number one, once we install our snap ring, this is going to be the base for our return spring to push on to return that piston, the underdrive apply piston in the bore. The other job, and why there's a seal on the outside portion of this actually helps get oil up and into overdrive to help cool it. This one, same deal. It's going to go in place. I'm going to use my pick and just walk Let's seal around as we're pushing down. And we're so close. There we are. Another piece of our snap ring retention solution is another retainer. This one is going to effectively be called the balance piston retainer. And there's pictures of this that go all over the place. I've seen them almost daily on the forum. In factory shape, that snap ring would be sitting directly on top of that balance piston. It also suffers fatigue. It doesn't move. This one doesn't flex like our lower snap ring does, but cycles. You have pressure coming on, going off on that. I've seen them come out of place. When this guy comes out of place, it pretty much wreaks havoc on the bearing system that is in that drum itself. And when that happens, your end plate goes out the window. Bearing material gets sent through underdrive and overdrive clutches. I've seen it go and actually ruin the underdrive shaft. So this is a fairly cheap solution in the grand scheme of things to a fairly large problem. Now we have to go back over to the press. We're going to go and move this balance piston down just far enough where we can go and get our snap ring in place. So see you guys over at the press. Back over the press, same basic principles before, 2 6-inch extensions and a block of wood. Let's go ahead and go down with it. All right, ease up there. I have to do a slight reset. I got one that's a little bit too close. Oh, there we go. Give me 2 more bumps. Easy ones, all right? It's actually enough right there. Snap ring orientation does not matter. It's a flat snap ring. This is where a set of 90-degree snap ring pliers come in good handy. We'll make it work. Like a dream. So what you're looking for, if you want to zoom in, there's a recessed pocket, and that's where the opening of the snap ring goes. All right, we're back over here on the build bench. And for those of you that bought the Cat 3 kit, none of this would be necessary. This drum comes completely assembled with clutches, steels, everything preset. But you guys who maybe didn't opt for the Cat 3 kit and have like a Guardian kit, I still want you to know how to set everything up. So rolling into that, the first set of clutches that we're going to install in this are the underdrives. In the category 3, actually the Cat 2, 3, and 4 kit, we're not going back with boards. Not that boards are an inferior clutch, but as expected, a category 2 and above transmission, it's really a performance transmission. We opted to go with Alto clutches. They have a higher friction coefficient, and basically what that means, the clutch itself is a more aggressive material. It's going to have a higher static holding capability over the board Warner clutches. You guys who actually have a build kit at home where you're assembling the drum, you'll notice these clutches are selectable, meaning some are thinner than others, and the whole entire reason for that, not every single drum is exactly the same size down to the 1,000th of an inch. We need some wiggle room, and the kits that are a build your own will come with additional clutches for you to go ahead and set up those clearances. Now, with this one being the category 3, it's already been assembled at the shop. I've already adjusted as necessary. What you guys just saw was I stacked in our 10 underdrive clutches. It is time for the first snap ring in the drum itself. And this snap ring is what separates, this snap ring is actually what our overdrive, underdrive pressure plate sits on. Okay, this is a flat snap ring with a double cut on the ends right there. And as we look in the drum, there is 2 snap ring grooves, one up high here and one down low here. The snap ring that we're doing goes in the lower groove. Roll it in like so. Moving on, this is the same in the Guardians as it is in the Cat 2. I go with a billet pressure plate that separates overdrive and underdrive. Reason for that, we needed to modify one to add additional clutches to the overdrive stack up, modifying the height, and it just worked out better doing it out of billet. The factory pressure plates are a powdered metal. They're not good when you have to go machine them down. And what we also did is this area right here. We actually widened that. I made that as wide as I could, without it going into the snap ring groove. And the reason for that, in our overdrive stack up, you'll see I prefer to run double-sided clutches, which leaves a clutch surface riding on this portion itself. I wanted to make that as wide as I could. That way we didn't have any clutch overhang. All right, with our pressure plate in place, I'll pull this back out so we can see. There is a right and a wrong way to install this. These dots that we have here should face up when you're installing it. The other side has no dots. And if you recall from our disassembly video, the larger beveled snap ring that originally went in this location, I threw it away. It is prone to breaking. It'll shatter and be in 4, 5, 6 pieces. We don't want that contamination. This snap ring comes in the V2 drum, but it is also supplied in your Transgo valve body kit. There's a little section that talks about this, but this snap ring is a much better snap ring than the factory style beveled, and it's going to ride in that top snap ring groove that we previously saw. Now, getting this in place is a little bit tricky. We come in at an angle, so I start really high at a harsh angle, and what we're going to do is kind of grab the opposing side, and we're going to roll that in kind of like a spiral. You will get to a point where it no longer wants to move. That's okay. At that point, we're going to go ahead and grab a flat blade screwdriver. We're going to get the snap ring down pretty far and slowly work our way around, tapping this into place. You want to do as parallel to the snap ring as you can. You don't want to dig down in the pressure plate. Once again, that is a clutch riding surface. So we only want to go and hit the snap ring. And when you get towards the end, you'll notice it appears that the snap ring is going to overlap on itself right here. Well, and the reason for that, if we pan around to this side over here, we can actually see the snap ring is not fully seated. So you'll get to a point where you've actually got to stop your progress over here and start working your way back around and fully seat the snap ring. That way we'll have enough opening where the snap ring doesn't overlap on itself. All right, now we should have enough room this time to fully seat that snap ring, and we did. Moving on to our overdrive stack up itself. You have a lot of builders out there, and there's no right or wrong way. Let me be clear with that, not to bash anybody whatsoever. I still run single-sided clutches in our Guardian stuff. There's a purpose for them. Whenever we go to a higher performance transmission, one that's going to be subjected to numerous boosted launches, whatever you want to call it, but abuse. We'll call it abuse, right? We want to retain as much of a heat sink as we can. And also we want to prevent coning. Single-sided clutches inherently have a thinner metal core in the clutch. Thinner metal core, with no intermediate steel between them, it means that they're going to go and they're going to cone a lot easier. Going up to a double-sided clutch with a nice thick 73,000 steel in between them, that's a much more rigid clutch plate. Okay, we're stacking 6 clutches to friction surfaces. Y'all can do the math at home. That's like 16 or something, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's 12. So 12 friction surfaces. Yeah. He wasn't paying attention. 12 friction surfaces. Oh, Wade. Let's see how much you did retain. How much clearance is underdrive and overdrive?
12.
No.
All right, underdrive, we're going to be 40 to 68 thou, and overdrive, we're going to be 30 to 63 thou.
That's correct.
So you like to set them up there at that 45 to 50 thou range, I think is what you said.
Yes.
And then 50 to 55 thou range on the underdrive.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely correct. Good job. All right. That does it for the overdrive clutch stack up itself. Moving along from our teardown video, we still use this wavy snap ring. The purpose of it was to cushion our reverse apply. We don't want this slamming into reverse. There is a difference in this drum versus the stock one. Adam, it might be hard to capture. Follow my pick here. If we look right down here, we can see there's actual snap ring grooves in this drum, whereas the factory drum, this is a giant void. So I do have snap ring grooves cut into here, one low, one high. Factory drum is not going to have that. This wavy goes all the way at the bottom here. No orientation to it, drop it in place. Moving on to our overdrive reverse pressure plate. This is also a billet piece. As you can see, we've hogged out quite a bit of material in order to go and fit those additional clutches in there. Back to, why do we make this out of billet? The factory pressure plates are powdered metal. They tend to be a little bit fragile. They'll go and shatter on you. So to prevent that, ensuring longevity, a good life with that, opted for billet. Once that's in place.
Recess out now.
Yes, recession goes down on there. There were dots on the other piece. There are no dots on this, but remember, the recess side does go towards your clutches. And finishing that off with this is a factory snap ring as well. This snap ring would be in the same location in the factory drum. Flat, easily identified by a straight cut and one half moon cut. And this one, it's not hard to put in place, but as we're putting this in place, installing it, we're having to compress that wave that we just installed. So take your opposing thumb, walk around with it, get it in place, and then I like to go and make sure that's seated by walking around.
Blake's big old sausages in here.
That would help us. That would help us, yep. All right, with everything in place there, the double-sided clutches are a little bit more tricky when it comes to setting tolerance on those, just because they actually do compress a little bit more than board warners do. The way that I set this up at the shop, clearance-wise, checking it is with a Miller tool and a dial indicator. For those of you at home, the Miller tool simulates a transmission pump. Your entire drum would actually slide over the Miller tool, and we would go and pump in air to simulate fluid apply. I would have a dial indicator, and I would actually measure the travel of that. How far did this pressure plate travel to apply that clutch? That's the way I check it at the shop. You guys at home, if we're wanting to go and check it, always a good habit to get in here. Let's see. These are probably going to be on the tighter side. Let's go 26 and 20. Okay. Whatever side you're going to check, I like to go and pull all my clutches over and take my thumb and press on one of our splines, press pretty much as hard as I can, and that's going to simulate that compression that I was talking about. And then get our feeler gauges in there. We're a little bit tight on 46, just a little bit tight. The Miller tool is a much more accurate way. We're actually measuring compression, everything factored in at the same time. That is definitely my preferred way of doing it. But
What would be 42?
yeah, we're going to cut her down. See where we're at now. It's wanting to go there. I can't get a good bite on it. It's wanting to go in right there. I'm going to designate that at a 42 thou clearance pre-compression. All right, when we come back, we're going to go ahead and drop in our input shaft as well as our underdrive, overdrive, and reverse hubs in here and get this thing ready to go in the transmission. And we're back with our billet input shaft. The only thing that you guys have to do with this input to get it ready to go in the transmission is install your lock-up sealing rings. These are the 2 blue rings out of the pack labeled sealing rings. The rest of these will go on pump and valve body accumulators. Let's set this off to the side. These are what we call a scarf cut seal, Teflon base. Easy way to get these in place without tearing them once we drop the pump in. I like to take them, kind of wrap them around my finger. That way they want to close in on each other, and then install it on the shaft. Now, what we're looking for, where these two made up at, this scarf cut, we want those to butt up perfectly against each other. We don't want an overlap. It should look just like that whenever you're done. Go ahead, do the same on our second. Get that in place. Once that is done, we are ready to install the input shaft. Set the drum on its side. Input should spline right in. That's a good fit. There's no wiggle wobble. If you guys at home are reusing your factory input clutch hub, you install your input shaft and you can turn it and hear clank clank. Stop. Your input clutch hub is no good. There's wear on the splines. Now, Wade, over in our sealing ring segment, oh, okay, perfect example of this. Splines are not wore, they're just a little bit tight. It is completely okay, using a dead blow, to just tap the end of the input shaft. Make sure it's fully seated. There is a wire snap ring that I'm going to be looking for, Wade.
You said it's in.
It should have been over here on our, no, not that one. This little guy. That's what we're searching for. Wade found it. Only one location for it to go. We're going to get right here. Kind of stretch it around the input shaft itself. I'm going to need my pick to help press this in place. Okay, now we want to stop there. Sorry, I did not quite hit the input shaft hard enough. If we look down in here with a good light, we can actually see that is not fully set in its location. Almost there, about 1 millimeter off. So we're going to go ahead, lay it down on its side. You're okay now. You can lay it down on its side. I'm going to tap her one more time.
Hit it like it owes you money, Montana.
That's right. I got my finger over the snap ring just to make sure it doesn't fly out of place there. That sounded more better. And if we look back now, yes, it's in place. Okay. Wade, you're going to hold this up in place while I go and grab our other shafts and our bearings.
Yeah, go grab your shaft, Montana.
And these are just factory shafts. First one that came off of here is our overdrive hub itself.
With this process.
Oh no, don't worry about that. Oh no. Nope. Nope, we ain't gonna do that. Overdrive hub and shaft is next, but first to be installed is the underdrive shaft itself. We're gonna go ahead and open our new bearing pack. These smaller silver bearings are gonna go all in our drum and planetary set once we drop it in the case.
This is the stack up where we have every one of these every one of these bearings is a different size, correct?
No, every one of these, every one of these are actually the same size. So these 5 right here are all the same size, same orientation. Ideally, you guys at home, just to avoid any sort of issues, especially if this is your first one, you don't know how it's supposed to feel. Some of your transmission glue, the rounded side, which is the side with our blue ink, the rounded side is going to sit nicely in our pocket on the shaft. Okay. Now, we don't have that nice glue, and I really don't want to use tractor grease like Wade was telling me to, so we're going to set that in place. I've done enough of these. I know if it's in place, but I will say while I'm fighting the shaft down there, this can move. If this moves, your shaft will not engage on the lower clutch itself. You're good, buddy. You're good. Just quit messing me up now, man. All right, there we go. That one's in place. Your subsequent bearings that follow that are the same basic orientation. Once again, if you had glue, we would go and use the rounded side with the ink in the recession. With us not having glue, it stays pretty centric on the shaft. It'll fall in place. Next, it's time for the overdrive hub. Beautiful. And last but not least, same way as before, ink facing up as we're installing our reverse hub. All right, these may look familiar. These are indeed the same clutch material as we use for overdrive. These are our 2 reverse clutches that we're about to install. Just go ahead, drop one directly on our pressure plate, followed by the steel, followed by your last clutch. Next is our reverse pressure plate. This is just a factory piece, nothing fancy about it. Oh, my snap ring was stuck in there. Look at that.
Good job.
Yeah. And for me, I like to go and tap this down in place. Whenever it comes to assembly, if I have the reverse hub locked in place, it's actually easier for me to line this up into the 4C sun gear. Okay. Reverse snap ring. This is one of the 3 factory styles that there are. There are numerous ones. This really does not fit in any other location good except for reverse. But this is one example of the reverse snap ring. It actually goes on the inside of these little tangs that are sticking up. I got a little bit of grease from the hammer right there. Let's clean that off. Okay. Our reverse hub is good and locked. We can set that down for the time being. Lay it down right here. Honestly, I feel like we are ready to go ahead and prep the case and get that ready for assembly. If you guys at home notice there is one bearing missing here, we'll address that as we're doing our case assembly because that particular bearing is one that adjusts our upper end plate of the unit. So we'll be right back.
That's
Oh.
a heck of a tolerance on that reverse 23 to 58 thou.
Oh, for the clutch clearance on reverse, and thank you for bringing that up because I didn't bring that. Yeah, there is a huge tolerance for reverse. It was 23 thousandths all the way up to 58 thousandths on there.
As you can probably feel, yeah, it's a mile.
Reverse really isn't a problem for us when it comes to, because it is such a large tolerance, isn't really an issue when it comes to adjusting, especially if you're keeping the unit together on that side of things. But basically, if we do want to see how we would measure that at home, if you're concerned about, if you feel like it's out of spec, the input shaft standing up, take what I just did, pull your pressure plate all the way down like we have. It's locked in place, and it's as simple as getting a screwdriver under here and prying this up and measuring what our clearance actually is through that window. If y'all can see that, you come in here and measure the clutch clearance through the window between our pressure plate up top and the clutch below that. All right, we're back here and we're ready for our final case assembly. First thing that goes in the case is our low reverse drum that we pre-assembled. Things to note, our feed hole needs to face the oil pan of this. And because of that, there is a feed directly from the valve body that will go through the case and feed our port here. This only goes in one way as well. There is a master key on our outer splines here. So if it's not going in place, chances are you don't have it lined up correctly. And we're going to spin around here and try not to block our view. We're going to go straight down in our case. And once we get to the bottom, it's just a little shimmy job to figure out where that master key is. And if you heard that last thud, let me see if I can do that one more time. That thud is what we're looking for. That case, that drum is fully seated in the case. Moving up here to our snap rings. This is one of our tapered snap rings that holds the low reverse drum in place. The rounded edge is going to face up as you're installing it. The flat edge will go and face the drum itself. Wait, you're gonna hold on to the screwdriver. I'm gonna need that in a second. Coming down at a 90-degree angle, easiest way that I've found. And once we're almost bottomed out, we'll go ahead and rotate that snap ring. Now the snap ring groove that we're looking for is one step below where I'm sitting right now. We're gonna go ahead and take a screwdriver and move our snap ring to start in the groove. And once we have that, I like using my thumb coming through the front of the case just to hold it and secure it in place there. Work your way around. And once that's done, as a final assembly, I like to follow that and tap it with a hammer. This can be a brass hammer, this can be a normal hammer. Does not matter on that side of things. All that we're looking for is making sure that our snap ring is fully recessed. Okay. Following that, we're going to go ahead and move along to our lower planetary assembly, including our output shaft. If you guys remember, I did not have the grease that I wanted to hold these bearings on. If that falls, it might take a couple tries to get it back in place, but we'll see what we got. Easiest way to do this is holding the inside of that planetary, and it sure did fall. Wait, I'll tell you what, flip that over. Yeah, silver side faces us this time. Yep, you got it. We're just gonna roll with it this way. All right, straight down we go. If you recall, this sun shell does line into the sprag, which that was what our final drop was right there. We can confirm it's fully seated by rotating clockwise and locked going counterclockwise.
Always want to get that last thud, don't you?
That last thud, yep. Black bearing facing up. Okay. Following that, with our 2C planetary, same deal, holding the inside ledge of it. We're going to ease it down. And there we go. All right, now we have our 2C clutch that actually goes into the case. Pressure plate goes in first. This was one on disassembly we talked about. We have a witness mark from the case itself. We're going to go ahead and put that back down towards the case. So flip it over. This is directional based on the count of our teeth here. We have 3 at the top side and 2 on the bottom side. All right, now we're going to move along to stacking our 2C clutches in the case. 2C is the largest clutch pack in there. Its job is 2nd gear and 6th gear. It's going to hold that planetary stationary for 2nd and 6th. Starting off with a clutch. Now these are double-sided, no orientation. Out of our SunCoast rebuild kit, we have the high performance steels right here, along with a thicker steel. The thick steel is going to go in last. And these are a little sticky. We have an anti-rust coating on here just to keep them from corroding in packaging. Alternate thin steel and clutch. Now Wade, how many of these do we have factory? How many 2C clutches came in this transmission factory?
Was it 4?
Well, we're going up to 4. You are right. So 3 is the factory count. We're moving up to a 4 clutch count. All right, and as I said before, we're going to end our stack up using one of our thick steels. This is actually a factory thickness steel that we're ending with. Okay, we have one more snap ring that we got to get in place. This is your largest diameter snap ring that is not a wave. Now the direction of this is pretty imperative. Adam, let me get it in place and then I'm going to show you where the opening needs to lie. Once again, coming down at a 90-degree angle. Kind of rotate. And Wade, do you have that screwdriver handy? No, sir, I got it. You give Wade a job and he doesn't even do it. I cannot believe it. Okay, what we're looking for is the snap ring groove here. As you can see, the snap ring is actually falling below the groove. We're going to pull it back up and lock it into place. I can probably just do that with my hand easier. Okay. Adam, if you want to come around to the front side, this is where we want to show the window opening at. So your snap ring window should line up with a window in the case itself. All right, once we have that in place, move along to our 4C sunshell. This is where our billet thrust washer is going in place. Yesterday, excuse me. Yesterday we had a little mishap and I broke the factory plastic one. Oops. We're going to go back with the Suncoast. And this is more than just a pretty design on it. This is actually helping us direct oil out of our main hub here. Let me find a pic. Directing oil out of our main hub here, out through our oiling for the 4C clutch. This only goes in one way. The 3 tabs are actually offset. So we've got to find the orientation that it goes, which is just like that. You guys see there are little rivets that will align those in place. Follow that up with another one of our silvers. This is our second largest silver bearing that we're looking for. It is in its own pack by itself. Switchblade. Yeah. This bearing does have an alignment tab on it as well. The alignment tab is to help keep it centric in our center support as such. So in this case, on assembly, our tabs are going to face up while we're dropping the bearing in place. Holding that in place, on the bottom side of our 4C sun gear, you have a recessed a recessed pocket for one of our smaller silver bearings. Once again, if you have the glue, I would prefer you use that. Glue it in place and then set it in the unit. For us, I'm going to go and barehand it and set this in the unit first as such. All right, ease our sun gear in place like such. Now, one critical thing that even I just messed up on, and you'll fight this if you don't pre-align these clutches. I'm actually going to remove our 4C sun gear and we're going to go ahead and pre-align these clutches. This will make your job 10 times easier, trust me. And that last thud is exactly what we're looking for. So as we flip this over, we're going to see our clutches are aligned. This should make it fall right into place. Reinstall your 4C sun gear. And now we can go ahead and drop our center support in. Center support is once again directional. Align the 3 tabs at the top, 2 tabs will be at the bottom. So as we flip this, we can see our oiling holes. This is actually the feed for 2C and 4C right here. That is going to face the oil pan as well. And we get that down in place as such. Now, one thing that I kind of messed up on, I like using my reverse hub to actually put down in here, align this. As we've already seen, I use my reverse hub to go and get it aligned, or sorry, use my reverse hub in the V2 drum already. Kind of got ahead of ourselves there. Let's see what I can do. I really don't want to tear the bushing up, so we're going to see if I can do this by hand itself. And all we're trying to do is rotate our 4C. Nope, that ain't going to work. All right, I'm going to go ahead and grab my reverse hub and be right back. All right, I had to run back over there and have Wade take out our reverse hub. Reason for that, easiest way to go and turn the 4C sun gear without damaging that bushing. With this in hand, you'll see the center support drop down. I'm going to support the front of it with my hand just to give us a little bit more wiggle. As I'm turning this, you'll see me wiggle it up and down just a little bit. There's 1, 2 more clutches, 2, and 3. There we go. And now it's finally time for the big boy snap ring, our last beveled snap ring that we're going to go and talk about. Flat side is going to go down facing the center support. Rounded side is going to go up facing you. Same deal as before, 90 degree. And this one's a little rough. We want to leave the opening once again at the case itself. I'm going to swap hands and locate my flathead. Now we're just going to use this, kind of pry it down in place. And once we're getting close, we'll start one side right here. Not quite close enough yet. And then just take your hand and walk around, bumping it, bumping it, bumping it. Make sure that our opening here is open, and that is it for the center support. Let me go ahead and put our reverse hub back in place, and I'll be right back with you guys. Center support in place. We're going to move forward with transferring over our bearing cap to our new bearing here. The reason that I don't send this with the rebuild kit, there is a ton of these in different sizes. This is what is setting our upper end play on this unit. We're going to go ahead and remove it from the factory bearing and press it, excuse me, press it onto our new bearing. Easiest way to do this without damaging anything, come in here, bottom side, little flat blade screwdriver, and we're going to just work it under the bearing like so and pop it out of place. Take a little brake clean just in case there was any residue left here. New bearing in hand, and just reverse it, press it in place. That's all there is to that. This is probably one of the most important bearings to go in place and stay in place correctly. For that reason and that reason only, I'm going to break my rule and use wheeled bearing grease on here because that's all we have. Chassis grease, whatever you want to call it, Wade. Tractor grease, little dollop of daisy, that's all you need right there. Set her in place on our reverse hub. Now this is a self-centering piece itself. Thank you, Wade. Just goes on place like such. Nice good tack on there. The input drum is ready to drop in the unit. Supporting this by the input shaft, take one hand, rotate it up, and go straight down. Now once you get to that point, we're waiting for the 4C splines to line up with that sun gear. Lift it up just a hair, spin it, and set it down. And there we go. And that is all that we need to do to drop that drum in place. Now, looking back on the build bench, we have one bearing left. Wade, I need you to tear this unit all the way down so we can put this in there. Yeah. No, just kidding, guys. This is the bearing that's going to go at the back of the pump and space the pump off of the input clutch hub itself. Once again, our blue die is going to face up. Just drop that in place. One thing that we did not talk about, and that is our 2C clutch clearance. Now is a great time. Really, once you have your center support in place, this being the center support, yeah. All right, we good now? Center support is in place. You've installed your top snap ring. You can do it after the drum's in place, or you can do it before. It's really up to you guys. But what we're looking for is in this window here, the clearance between the top of that steel and that black anodized piston, okay? Now that clearance is typically, with our stack up, anywhere from 50 to 55 thousandths. Even with a 4 clutch stack up, that's perfect. But there's plenty of room to get a feeler gauge in there. Another thing that works great is if you have a 68 that's busted into pieces, the parking pawl wire right here. As you zoom in on that, Adam, can we see that? Parking pawl wire right there. That is exactly 55 thousandths. That's a great thing to keep on the bench. All of our builders have it. That's a great reference point no matter what you're doing. 55 thousandths is pretty universal for underdrive, overdrive, and 2C. Checking it, getting a feel for where you're at with that. And with that being said and done, we're going to go ahead and clear the bench off, talk about the pump and the valve body going in this, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, we have everything pretty much stacked up in the case. Let's spend some time talking about the pump and the valve body with this. This was a different scenario than what you guys are going to face at the house. You know, we started off with a truck that was kind of unknown. How damaged was it? I got a call that said, hey, we need a kit for this. And I thought this would be a great time to do a video. Expecting the worst, I pre-built a pump and a valve body. And the reason that I did that, there's a couple things more than just dropping in a shift kit and dropping in some springs into the pump. We really need to worry about the bore integrity. Is the bore round? Does it vacuum check correctly? And flat out, no offense to Thoroughbred, we're just not equipped here to do that. You know, they're not a transmission specific shop. As y'all seen pretty much all day, we've been running around and making our own tools and getting by. But when it comes to the pump and valve body, this is probably one of the most crucial pieces of that transmission. It's not something that we want to go and risk. And I'll be clear with this, there's really nothing above in this pump or valve body that we've done except for one thing, and that is the SSV bore, the solenoid switch valve. That is, as far as the valve body goes, probably the #1 failure point that I see, commonly associated with the P0871 code. A pressure switch rationality. That valve, it's very prone to wearing the bore out. Whenever it does that, you have fluid that bypasses and goes where it shouldn't go, basically. So what we did with that, using a Transgo tool and a Transgo valve, we actually oversized that SSV and changed it from an anodized aluminum valve that's very hard on the bore to a polished steel valve. As far as the kit goes, this is a really nice kit. You know, coming from a builder, I'm not so concerned about instructions, but I will say, as far as tech calls go, we get tech calls all the time. This is one of the few that people actually have an issue with. There's some awesome instructions with this. A lot of good general info also when it comes to the 68 RFE pump and valve body side. It is a pretty straightforward installation. I went a little bit more in depth with this kit in the product video. There'll be a link to that within this video as well. But guys, this is, if you follow these instructions to a T, you're not going to have any sort of issues. Although I do encourage possibly either adding on the option to get a completed pump and valve body, or at least having a good relationship with a transmission shop that can do the proper vacuum checks to ensure you're not doing all this for nothing. With that SSV bore, there's really nothing else that'll do and burn up a brand new 68 quicker than that valve itself. So with that being said, it is the tuneless kit at a stock pressure desired of 160 PSI. This will produce 220 PSI at the clutch pack. The way that we're doing that, this has a multi-layer separator plate on it. There are channels in between the layers, and we're effectively bleeding off a set amount of pressure going to the line pressure sensor. That way we don't throw an overpressurization code, anything like that. So when I say it's a tuneless valve body, what I'm really saying is we're accounting for the pressure within the pump and valve body. There's no need to increase pressure within the tune file. You should still go and tune for your shift points, tune for your shift firmness, your lockup events, all that sort of stuff. This will not address any of those, but it does get us the proper line pressure at the sensor, proper line pressure at the clutch pack itself. With all that being said, let's go ahead and drop this thing in. All right, at this point, we're ready to go ahead and drop our pump into the case itself. We've already installed our filter pickup grommet. You really can do it after the pump's in place. Not a big deal if you've already done this and forgotten it. Let's go ahead and set the pump down in here. We'll be easy with it so we don't tear our lockup seals as we're going down in here. Okay, once you've got the pump flush against the case, we can go ahead and take our bolts and start installing these. Torque spec on these bolts came out to 250 inch-pounds, which translated to American is 20 foot-pounds. It's actually 20.6, but close enough. All right, our Kentucky speed handle is ready. I agree with that. As long as the pump itself is flush against the case, easiest way for you guys at home to look at that, looking right in here. Adam, I don't know if you can zoom in, pan down. Sorry to make you do some dancing moves today, but what we're looking for is right here in this corner. We should not have a gap between the pump and the case. If you have a gap, you have a bearing that's out of alignment, bearing that fell out of the pocket. So as long as you have this case and pump flush, you're good to tighten these down and go ahead and torque them. We're going to do that off camera, and I'm going to get ready to prep the pie cover to go in here and finish up the front of this transmission. We don't include a new pie cover. That may be subject to change. Price, it just comes down to price, and we try to go and make this kit as affordable as possible and still include the best of the best. With that being said, I just went and took a nice little ball peen, knocked down our mark from where we beat the pie cover off the transmission. It's time for us to go ahead and install our new O-ring on the outer portion of this. I like doing it from the back side and just roll it on down. Oh, Wade, thank you, buddy. Thank you. Stretch it just a little bit and roll it down into its location.
Worth noting that recess is the one closest to the outside.
Let's go and bring this up to the camera here. That is the correct location for your O-ring. If it's not in that location, you're gonna have a heck of a time getting your pie cover back in place. Something that we talked about off camera, and in the spirit of transparency with you guys, let's talk about it. I personally, me as Montana, prefer to use the factory OEM seal on this. Reason being, I like it. It's a good design. This truck we know had 0 leaks out of it. I'm not going to go and replace that. I do, however, if you have a transmission that is leaking oil, I do include the only seal that's available in aftermarket. This particular seal that I'm so fond of, I've only been able to find this if you buy the entire pie pan from Mopar with that. Everybody else's aftermarket seal is this design. I just prefer using the factory seal as long as it's not compromised. And that's what we're going to roll with. Wade, we're going to go ahead, and you can go ahead and pan down for me, Adam. For ease of installation and not damaging our new O-ring, this entire area right here. Okay, we're going to go and take that and run grease around that, and that's going to help us get this pie cover in place. Now, while he's doing that, I'll go and talk a little bit. There is a tool for this pie cover, also supplied by Miller Tool. It's a great tool to go and put this in place. Is it needed if you're careful? No. I'm going to show you guys the way that I get around using the tool if I don't have it available. And that is back to our dead blow. Let me go ahead and find that. You got her, Wade. Grease her up, dude. You're still supposed to be greasing. Come on. Okay, you're greasing. All right.
Less talking, boss.
All right.
Less talking.
While he's doing that, I'm going to grab some of our homemade trans jelly and just wet the seal a little bit.
It's charged grease with.
This video is definitely taken a turn of its own from what we kind of pre-planned, but I'm not going to lie, I like it. I like the DIY aspect of it, the creativeness of it. You know, anybody can go and look at a transmission shop that's full equipped and go and do a rebuild on it. This takes a life of its own. I really hope you guys at home appreciate, you know, the struggles that we've had this week trying to go and provide good content for you guys. So, dropping pie cover in pretty much straight down. We don't want it off to one side. If it goes and hangs off to a side like that, where's my pick? No, we're looking for a pick. We're looking for a pick, yep.
Here's your smooth.
That'll work. We just want something I can get on the back side of this pie cover and kind of pop it up. I'm going to leave this in there for leverage and help me get this as close to straight as possible. And we're there. Okay, now that's not all the way in. What we don't want to do whenever we're using our dead blow, we want to focus on this outer edge here. We're not trying to hit anything up in this area. If we're doing that, what that can actually do is bend the pie cover, and now your seal is no longer straight to the converter hub. That most certainly will be a leak. So what we're going to do is take this and gently but firmly tap it in place. Now, while I'm tapping this down in place, I'm also applying pressure so we don't lose any progress that we made working our way around, okay? And oh, we're getting close, Wade. You want to do me a favor and put some pressure on the back side? She's kind of teetering there for us. Not quite there. Believe she is in her home. I'm going to go and find where Eli set our pie cover snap ring. I found it. No orientation specific on this one. It is just a flat snap ring. Tell us, what did Wade say?
It'll tell us whether it's home or not.
That's right. This orientation doesn't matter. Anything that I build, I put it in the 12 o'clock position. Wade, I'd say she is not quite home. Now, important. We fought it up to this point. Let's go ahead. I want you to just go and support. Do you trust me?
Yep.
Put your finger about right here. Let's find this spot right here.
On the snap ring?
Yep, on the snap ring. Now what we're going to do, and this is another way to not damage that pie cover. Did you take that ball peen hammer away?
Yeah, I did. I took the ball.
No big deal. Hey, oh, Wade's running. Oh, we're on the home stretch now. I can feel it.
We're getting ready to make shit with a screwdriver, right?
Yes, sir. You got it. You know me well. All we're going to do is kind of take the screwdriver and use it to go and walk that around. Now, we don't want to hit the case. We'll have to whack her pretty good up here, Wade.
That's what she said.
Okay. She's in her home. We have an undamaged pie cover. Clean her up. As far as the top side goes, that is it. We're going to go ahead and get this girl on her back and visualize putting our valve body, our zero cavitation filter, and our pan on it. Transmission is obviously up on the table here. As we've been preaching about, air check. Air checks are great, gives you a good idea. Did you hurt something? Did you tear a seal? Are you going to have issues if you install this in the truck? Starting at the rear of the transmission, all the way down here, this is our low reverse drum. Get that in there. Now you're going to hear air bypassing because this drum does have a bleed orifice in it, but it still has a nice pop even after we let go. That is great. Awesome. Moving on, the first hole that we come to is our 4C clutch. You cannot see this clutch actuate. You just have to go off of a blind sound. And we get the same blowback on that as well. That's great. That also has a bleed orifice. Adam, if you want to go and focus on this area right here, when I go and actuate the 2C clutch, you can actually see the piston itself travel, okay? Sorry, I'm trying to work around this giant TV production camera Adam's got me working with today. All right. C is working great as well. Moving on, we can watch the drum. You're not going to be able to see the drum move when the underdrive clutch comes on. This is our drum here that we're watching. It will move, however, with overdrive apply and reverse apply. First one that we come up with should be our overdrive. Next one is going to be underdrive. This one's not going to move, but we can hear the piston travel, and I do get some blowback out of the case orifice. And last but not least, our reverse. And we get that blowback sound we're looking for. All is well in the world. Getting ready to install the valve body, I like moving my park position all the way forward. This is actually out of park. Moving that all the way forward, we can go and pick up our valve body. Oh, let me reach over here and grab it. On the valve body itself, we can get the detent in the correct position, which is, once again, all the way forward. This is pretty imperative. I can't tell you how many times I've seen somebody take a valve body, throw it up, not have this aligned, completely miss the pin in the case, or worse yet, break the pin off. Once you do that, you're tearing this whole unit back down to go and change out your shift lever, okay? This, I'm gonna roll it kind of up on its back a little bit more, just to make it easier. No, I'm good. I'm waiting for the view. We got okay from Adam, flipping it over. Now there are two dowel locations. One location of the case is here, one location is here. Once this is seated, you don't want to just start cranking on bolts. We want to go and make sure that this is pulled down evenly across the board here. Okay, now it actually fell in place pretty good. We're still not completely seated. We can see that as the valve body's rocking. Whenever we're at this stage, I would recommend putting slight pressure on the valve body, pushing down and actuating your shift linkage at the same time. We saw the valve body pop up and then fall back down. We know that pin and our shift linkage is aligned correctly now. I'm going to go ahead and grab our bolts and start those by hand. Now with this using our zero cavitation kit, we're not going to install this bolt over here yet. There is a special bolt and a spacer that goes over here with that kit. Your other 5 valve body bolts can be started. And we are looking for my 8mm, which should be, do you have it?
8mm has escaped us.
No way.
Oh, that's the knot now.
You got her? We got Houdini playing tricks on us. I'll go ahead and start doing these by hand. Are you sure I'm not looking at it right there, Wade? Is that a 10? All right, we're gonna go ahead and run these in by hand, and we'll come back whenever we're, I've located the 8mm socket. Be right back. Located our 8 mil, and I want to show you guys the order in which I go and run these bolts down. This has been very good for me. I've never broken that pin that we were talking about. I like to start here at the back, actually, and we're going to just go and run that down. Not tight yet. We're just snugging everything up. I rotate out here to the outside bolt, kind of bring that down to a point I feel a little bit of resistance. I'm going to actuate the shift linkage one more time just to be safe. We're good to go there. And then I jump all the way up to the front center bolt and run that down. Wade, do me a favor. Tell me what the torque spec is on these. I know we put your cheat sheet up. I do believe you're right.
That's right. That's the number that you called.
Keep in memory, guys, these bolts are going into aluminum. Don't torque on them too hard. You will strip the case out, and that is a whole nother ordeal that I don't feel like dealing with today. So, what do we got, Wade? What'd you find? They're going to be down here.
Almost there, buddy. Almost there.
We're looking at bolt, valve body to case. 105 inch-pounds, which translates into just shy of 10 foot-pounds. Yep.
So don't do 20.
Do not do 20 like we did on the pump. Hold on. All right, we're calibrated now. We're good.
Wade missed your joke.
Oh, he did miss it. Don't worry about it. I got a torque wrench, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
We can go and check my torque wrench, though. That's fine. That's fine. 105. And I want you guys at home to know, we are in the dead of winter right now. It's a snowstorm outside. Shop is freezing. We're all out here not wearing jackets to go and be professional and put on a good video for you guys, all right? You got this set at 105. I don't trust you, Wade. I can't read that. I'll take your word for it then. 105. Let's see how close I was or was not. Oh, man, that's close. We got just a little turn on it and a click off. Same with that one. I'd say I was calibrated pretty spot on. Might have been a hair over on that one. Just a hair over, but we're good. Moving along to our zero cavitation filter kit. I'm going to come around to this side. Zero Cav kit is running a 48 RE, actually a 47 RE style open element filter. Reason being, we had issues with 68 filters. They do cavitate, even though they have a extension on the filter itself. It is still prone to cavitation. We have issues with the silicone plug that likes to fall out of the factory style filter. This was our solution to it. Fairly simple. All right, starting off with our billet block, we provided another filter. This is an OEM 68 style filter seal itself. Go ahead and install that into your billet block. Take a little bit of transmission fluid. We want to go ahead and wet that seal. Next, we have our supplied filter tube. Now the filter tube, you're going to take the longer end and insert that into your billet filter block. We really should go and lube up our end of the tube here as well, just to make sure it slides into the pump easy. A little bit of force to go down, and we are seated. Now with this particular channel plate, we can see there is a recession on this bolt right here. The filter block is non-recessed. So within our kit, I did provide a small, I believe it is a 40 thousandths spacer shim, which we're looking for right there. This shim is going to go in between the filter block and the channel plate itself. So once we have this almost in place, I'm going to go ahead, supplied bolt that is a little bit longer than the factory bolts. We're gonna go ahead and start that and slide our shim over in place. And same torque spec, 105 on that bolt. Let me peek around here. Okay. With that being done, next is your torque flight style filter. Opening. We're not using the third bolt. I'm going to set that up there, and using the supplied washers and socket cap screws, we'll go ahead and get this guy in place. And it is worth noting, every single one of our kits comes with the zero cap filter. This applies to everybody out there with a Suncoast rebuild kit. Don't get stupid tight on these. I don't have a actual torque spec on these. Go ahead and just do a nice little hand tight on that. That is a 4mm. We'll have to go and run that. I'm going to do two things. We're going to find a 4mm hex head socket, as well as find our factory OEM style spin-on filter, and we'll be right back for that final installation, and then we'll be putting the pan on. Found the 4mm. We'll go ahead and hand tighten these up. We're not looking to over tighten them. If you over tighten them, it will crush our eyelet there. Moving on to our factory style filter. Wade said, well, we can go and just get the right size socket, and he's correct. I know we have it here. It's a 1/2" hex. Another way that you can do it in a pinch, if you don't have that accessible, good pair of channel lock and one good swift motion. I lied. That sucker is in there, boy. All right, Wade. I might have lost that bet. Oh, we ain't done yet, Wade. We ain't done yet. We ain't giving up on her. Ah, there we go. We got her. Okay. One thing I do like to check for in these threads here, sometimes from the factory when they go and tighten this in place, you will have a little bit of plastic left over. I'd like to take a good look, make sure there's no plastic in there. If there is, always take one of your picks. You can sit there and get the plastic shards out of there. In this case, we are good to go. A little bit of oil on the face of the filter. Now the Suncoast kit does supply one of these metal filter adapters if you don't already have one. And with that, hand tight is good. Moving on to pan installation. Boys, we're close. Wade was nice enough to bring it over. In the Suncoast gasket kit, you have the traditional fiber style gasket. If you choose to use that in RTV, by all means, feel free to do so. I personally prefer the lube locker gasket. Setting this on here. And this is no different than really any other pan install out here. You know, we have our bolts, we have our washers. We're gonna go ahead and get all these started. I'm sure you guys are gonna be bored to death if you watch me do it. So Adam, why don't you go and, is it beer 30 yet? All right, guys, we'll be right back. All right, we got Wade torquing down all the pan bolts. One last piece, and it's kind of imperative that we go and put this in. Two things: you won't have park, and you also won't have an output speed sensor signal without this gear in here. Gear does not matter which way you put it in. Either way is perfectly fine. Splines on our output shaft all the way up in here. We're gonna go and just slide it in place. Once that's in place, secured with one snap ring, doesn't matter the orientation of that. Slide that on. Wade, you're good. Don't worry about me, buddy. You keep on doing it. You keep on doing it. You're doing good. All right, parking gear is in place. Let's go ahead and put the unit in park itself. And there she be. All right, well, Wade's gonna finish torquing those up. We're gonna go ahead and get a razor blade, scrape off all this old RTV back here, get that good and cleaned up. And other than installing our speed sensors and replacing our line pressure sensor, we're pretty much ready for reinstallation of this unit. Now, the reason that I mentioned replacing our line pressure sensor, there's a diaphragm inside of that sensor. If you've had a transmission failure, you have dirty fluid, you have contamination in that fluid, all that gets collected in that diaphragm. Diaphragm can rupture. Always recommend going with OEM sensors. I can't stress that enough. Time and time again, I see issues with install jobs. I see issues with tech calls, people that have an aftermarket sensor and it's not reading correctly or it's not reading accurately at all. So with that being said, definitely recommend going OEM. They're fairly cheap, 40, 50 bucks for a new line pressure sensor. Can't stress that enough. Other than that, I think you guys are ready for reinstallation. Some of that SunCoast fluid and a relearn on it. Wade, what do you think?
We'll talk about that when we get the transmission in the truck, what the fluid levels are, and relearn procedure, all the good stuff for fit and finish.
I just realized Wade's not mic'd up. He said we're going to do a separate video of that.
Long story
Adam
short.
can go in there and ad-lib it for him, right? But he's going to be doing a separate video on that install. Implore you guys to call me going through that. I'm probably going to be gone out of town at that point, but give me a call and we'll go through. And I definitely want to know what our CVIs are. We can compare those to the video of the same truck no more than a year ago when it was in good, healthy shape.
Yep. All those are still going to be the same.
That's right. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up, flip it over, and get all the accessories back on it and ready for installation. All right, guys, we're back at SunCoast here. After we did the final assembly at Thoroughbred off camera, we did figure out that we didn't record one very crucial step that you guys at home really need to know, and that is checking in-play. Now with the 68, there's two in-play measurements. One, as we have it set up here, is the input shaft itself. The second one is the output shaft. This unit, by design, is separated into two halves. You have a rear in-play and then a front in-play. And what we're going to be showing is how to check both of those easily at your shop with bare minimum tools. Our setup that we have here, it's just a normal dial indicator that you guys can find at pretty much any store, even Harbor Freight. Setup is pretty easy. We just have a piece of steel that we have holes cut into. I've got a bolt running through that, securing it to the belt housing, and that gives us a nice sturdy base to go ahead and check our in-play. Kelsey, if you want to come over here with me and let's actually look at the guts inside the transmission, I'll show you guys what we need to do, what we need to support, and where we need to use our screwdriver as a leverage point to check in-play. Like I was saying before, off camera there that you couldn't see earlier, this is our dial indicator setup. We took a scrap piece of metal that we found laying around the shop, went ahead and drilled a couple holes in it to secure our dial indicator. The actual piece of metal is held in place by a bolt and a nut straight to the bell housing here. I can't tell you how imperative it is that we have a solid mount for our dial indicator. If the dial indicator is not solid mounted, all of our measurements will be off. You want to ensure that you have something equivalent to this as far as your setup goes before we can start dialing in and checking any of our in-play. All right, with our dial indicator in place, let's talk about where we're actually going to be measuring, and that is in between our overdrive, underdrive drum and our center support right here. Easiest way to do it there is, if you peek in there, you can actually see there's some hang down points where the inner drum actually protrudes pretty close to our center support. Get a good long screwdriver, and we're going to go in basically right here. And if we want to go ahead and pan up, we'll see that our dial indicator is set to 0. While I'm checking this, I like having my hand just to support the input shaft. That way it doesn't wobble, because that can definitely throw your measurement off. So we're going to go ahead and support that. Next step is to gently apply pressure on the screwdriver, and we'll get our in-play reading. So we're going to come up here, and that is tension on. That gives us about 15 to to 16 thousandths right there. I'm going to go ahead and let off to show you guys. And we're going to return back to 0 and back again 15-ish thousandths. Now, factory spec on this shows that you should be between on the input shaft shows you need to be between 20 and 29. I actually prefer to have that tightened up for what we do here in the aftermarket, using aftermarket drums, aftermarket parts. 10 to 20 thousandths on the input shaft is plenty sufficient. So we're happy with that. We'll go ahead and rearrange our dial indicator setup to the rear of the transmission, and we'll be right back. All right, we got the transmission rotated around. Bell housing side is down now. Dial indicator is set back up. You see, we did reuse the same piece of metal on the back side here. It is secured in place using one tail housing bolt on the opposite side. Dial indicator zeroed out. What we're going to be focused on: screwdriver, parking gear removed, the groove that the parking gear snap ring would typically go in. We're going to use that as our point to pry on. I've got a block of wood in my hand that we're going to use for some leverage here. Factory spec on this is 10 to 20 thousandths. There's no reason to really deviate from that. We'll talk about at the end of the video if you do need to change this, you need to loosen it up. I'll show you guys how to do that. But we're in place. We got our leverage point here. Go ahead and get our screwdriver engaged on our snap ring groove like so. And now it's as simple as prying up and watching our dial indicator. All right, looks like we've got 11 to 12. Go ahead and let that off. So we're showing about 1 thou off on our dial indicator. We'll factor that into our math. And we're sitting there well within spec, okay? And that is the easiest way to show how to measure the rear in play on the 68 RFE. I'm gonna go ahead and get this knocked off of here, spin the transmission back around, and have a quick talk with you guys about how to adjust in play if needed. All right, last step, talking about how do I change in play if it's incorrect. Factory form, this is your thrust washer. Normally it is plastic from the factory. This is a selective piece. Now in the Suncoast kits, we give you one of these. This is the #1 most commonly used, #2 thicker of the group. And what that allows us to do, if our rear in play is too tight, maybe we have 5 thousandths or maybe we have 0 in play, what we're actually able to do is take this over and flat sand it, surface it down as needed. I get a lot of questions, why aren't there multiple? And that's the short summary of it. It's aluminum. We can always take some more off. We can't always put it back on. So we provide the most commonly used, which happens to be one of the thicker ones as well. And this has always gotten us within spec. Even if we got to go and take 5 thou off, we always are able to achieve what we need using this. Now, talking about the upper end plate, our input shaft end plate, how is that adjusted? Your reverse bearing, the bearing that would go on the reverse hub, actually sits down on top of our center support, as you guys have previously seen. This black plastic piece is selective. Now, the only way to achieve this black plastic piece is to buy it from the dealer. It comes in a pack of, I think, 12, and they're all different thicknesses that are within that. Whenever we were building this, I talked about keeping all of our parts together, and that's one of the reasons why. This just makes it a little bit easier to go and set your in play and make sure everything's going to line up where it needs to out of the box. But once again, if we do run into an issue where we have 0 in play on the front side, or we have some tremendous in play, 30 thousandths plus in play, going down and getting a pack of these bearing caps will give you the selectives that you need to achieve the right in play with that. That's pretty much all I have with this. Sorry that we did not think to film this in the initial take. Apologize for that, guys, but everything that we used here, keeping it with the DIY-esqueness of the build, all this stuff is available. If you don't already have it laying around the shop, it should be available. Thanks for joining us.